My late husband hid $55 million while we lived in poverty. The bank manager warned me not to touch it. Hello listeners, and welcome to Stories of Anora. I'm so glad to have you here with me. Please subscribe to my channel and like this video. Thank you so much. The $55 million lie. Chapter 1. Don't touch it. The number on the screen had too many commas. For several seconds, I thought grief had finally begun playing tricks on me. I leaned closer to Daniel's old computer and read the balance again. $55,084,219.17. $55,084,219.17. My late husband had once driven 23 miles with the fuel warning light on because gasoline was 4 cents cheaper near the interstate. He had patched the same hole in our roof 3 times instead of hiring a contractor. When our daughter Rachel was accepted into Northwestern, Daniel sat at our kitchen table with both hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug and told her we could not help. We're barely keeping our heads above water, he had said. Rachel went to Ohio State instead. She worked night shifts, took out loans, and spent the next 14 years paying for a decision she had never really made. And now, 6 weeks after Daniel's funeral, I was staring at $55 million in an account carrying his full legal name. I checked the account number against the faded deposit slip in my hand. The last 4 digits matched. I checked the social security number shown in the online profile. The last 4 digits matched. I checked the date of birth. April 9, 1959. Daniel's birthday. My hands began to shake. The deposit slip had been hidden beneath the false bottom of his desk drawer. I had found it only because the wood panel had shifted when I pulled too hard. The original deposit was $2,400. The date printed at the top was October 3, 2002, the day after Daniel came home and told me Silver Pines had eliminated his position. That was the beginning of what he called our difficult years. 23 years of careful grocery lists. 23 years of postponing repairs. 23 years of hearing the same sentence whenever I asked about money. My consulting work only brings in $600 a month, Helen. Sometimes it was $620. Sometimes $580. But always close enough to $600 that the number became part of our marriage. $600. It was why I remained in the Dayton School District until 62, even when my knees hurt from walking the long halls. It was why Daniel said we could not replace the furnace until it failed completely. It was why I once returned a winter coat because he had stood beside me at the register and gone silent when he saw the price. I had mistaken that silence for worry. Now I wondered whether it had been calculation. A telephone number appeared beside the account information. For inquiries regarding restricted account status, contact a senior account representative. Restricted account. I read the phrase twice, then picked up my phone. The first call sent me through an automated menu. I entered the account number, Daniel's date of birth, and the final digits of his social security number. The recording told me the account could not be serviced through the automated system. I called again and pressed 0 until a human being answered. Midwestern Union Bank, customer support. My name is Kevin. How may I assist you? My husband died 6 weeks ago, I said. I found an old account in his name. I'm sorry for your loss, ma'am. Are you listed as a joint owner? I don't know. There was a pause. May I have the account number? I gave it to him. I heard typing. Then nothing. Mr. Mercer's full name, he asked. Daniel Robert Mercer. Your name? Helen Mercer. More typing. The easy politeness disappeared from his voice. One moment, Mrs. Mercer. The line went silent. I looked around Daniel's office while I waited. His reading glasses still rested beside the lamp. A yellow legal pad lay under them, the first page blank except for the date of his final doctor's appointment. Daniel had died of a stroke on a Tuesday morning. He had been standing at the kitchen counter, complaining that the coffee tasted weak. Then the mug slipped from his hand. By the time the ambulance arrived, he could no longer speak. I had held his fingers in the hospital and asked him whether there was anything he needed me to know. He looked at me with such desperate concentration that I thought he was trying to say goodbye. Now I wondered whether he had been trying to confess. A woman came onto the line. Mrs. Mercer? Yes. My name is Clara Gwynn. I'm a senior compliance manager with Midwestern Union Bank. I need to verify your identity before we continue. She asked questions no ordinary customer service representative had ever asked me. The county where Daniel and I were married. The middle name of our daughter. The original amount listed on the deposit slip. When I answered the last question, Clara went quiet. How did you obtain that document? She asked. I found it in my husband's desk. Was the drawer locked? No. Did anyone else see you find it? The question unsettled me. No. Has anyone contacted you about this account? No. I didn't even know it existed until 10 minutes ago. She exhaled softly. Mrs. Mercer, I cannot discuss the account's legal classification over the phone. Can you tell me whether that balance is real? Another pause. Yes. The words seemed to drain all sound from the room. I gripped the edge of Daniel's desk. $55 million? Yes. Was it my husband's? I cannot answer that question in the way you're asking it. What does that mean? It means the name associated with an account does not always establish personal ownership of every asset held within it. I looked at the screen again. Daniel's name appeared at the top in plain black letters. Then why is his name there? I'm not authorized to explain that over an unsecured line. Mrs. Gwynn, my husband told me we were poor for more than 20 years. He told me he made $600 a month. Our daughter borrowed money for college. I worked until my knees gave out. I am looking at $55 million with his name attached to it, and you're telling me you can't explain. Her tone softened, but only slightly. I understand why you're upset. No, you don't. You're right. I don't know what your marriage was like. But I do understand the consequences of making the wrong move with this account. A notification appeared at the bottom of the computer screen. Would you like to initiate an external transfer? My finger hovered over the mouse. How much of it can I access? I asked. Clara's voice changed. Mrs. Mercer. What? She spoke 3 words, slowly and clearly. Don't touch it. The warning was so sharp that I pulled my hand away from the mouse. What happens if I do? I need you to log out immediately. Do not initiate a transfer. Do not request a cashier's check. Do not print withdrawal instructions. And do not give the account number to anyone who claims to represent your husband. Why would anyone do that? Log out first. I clicked the small circle in the upper corner and signed out. The screen returned to the bank's homepage. I'm out. Good. Now tell me why. Before she could answer, an email arrived. The subject line read, Notice of temporary restriction. I opened it. Access to the account had been suspended pending review. What did you do? I asked. I placed a protective restriction on electronic activity. You froze it. I prevented immediate movement of funds. Without my permission? The account was already subject to limitations. Your login triggered a required review. I stood so quickly that Daniel's chair rolled backward and struck the filing cabinet. You're treating me like a criminal. I'm trying to make sure no one can make you look like one. The sentence stopped me. What does that mean? Clara did not answer directly. Someone from the bank's legal department will contact you. Until then, keep the original deposit slip secure. Do not destroy it. Do not photograph it using a cloud-connected device. And do not discuss the balance with anyone. My daughter. I said anyone. This is my husband's account. I understand. No, you keep saying that, but you don't understand anything. You don't understand what $55 million means after 23 years of being told we couldn't afford a new roof. I understand that discovering money can feel like discovering freedom, Clara said. But this account may be evidence before it is anything else. The word evidence settled between us. Evidence of what? The line went quiet. Then someone knocked on my front door. 3 hard knocks. Not a neighbor's knock. Not someone bringing food or checking whether I needed groceries. A demanding knock. I moved to the window and looked through the blinds. Daniel's younger brother stood on my porch. Paul Mercer wore a navy suit and held a leather folder beneath one arm. I had not seen him since the funeral. He had sent flowers, stayed 20 minutes, and left before the burial. Now he stood outside my house less than 5 minutes after I logged into Daniel's hidden account. Mrs. Mercer? Clara asked. Are you still there? My brother-in-law is at the door. Paul Mercer. My skin went cold. How do you know his name? Do not tell him you spoke to me. You know him? Mrs. Mercer, secure the document and end this call. The knocking came again. Helen, Paul called through the door. I know you're home. I folded the deposit slip and slipped it inside my blouse. Then I ended the call. By the time I reached the front hallway, Paul was trying the doorknob. I opened the door but kept the security chain fastened. What are you doing here? He smiled without warmth. Checking on my sister-in-law. You've had 6 weeks to check on me. His eyes moved past my shoulder toward Daniel's office. I've been handling some complicated matters. What matters? Daniel's estate. You're not the executor. No. But there may be assets that were incorrectly included under his name. The wording was too precise. I stared at him through the narrow opening. What assets? Paul stopped smiling. Helen, let me in. No. This isn't a conversation we should have on the porch. Then we shouldn't have it. He looked toward the street. The Dalton boy was pushing a lawnmower across the yard next door. A delivery truck idled at the corner. Paul lowered his voice. Did you find an old bank document? I felt the paper against my skin. What bank document? His jaw tightened. You were never good at lying. And Daniel was? The words surprised both of us. Paul's expression shifted from impatience to calculation. Daniel kept things from you because he believed he was protecting you. From what? Open the door. No. He placed one hand against the frame. An account ending in 4621 does not belong to you. I stopped breathing. I had not told anyone the account number. Not even Rachel. Paul saw the answer on my face. You logged in, he said. It was not a question. How did you know? Because there are systems in place. What systems? He glanced toward the street again. Helen, if you move a single dollar, you could lose your house, your retirement, and whatever is left of Daniel's reputation. My house? You don't understand what you found. Then explain it. I can't do that until you sign something. He lifted the leather folder. What is it? A limited disclaimer and correction of estate interest. It confirms that certain assets appearing under Daniel's name were never intended for personal distribution. You came here expecting me to sign away $55 million? Paul's face hardened. Keep your voice down. Why? Is the money embarrassed? This is exactly why Daniel didn't tell you. Because I might ask questions? Because you react before you understand. The accusation landed with the familiarity of an old family judgment. Daniel had said similar things. Not often. Never loudly. But whenever I questioned money, or his work, or the locked cabinet he kept in the garage, he would sigh and say, Helen, you're making this emotional. As if emotion were a form of stupidity. I unhooked the chain. For one hopeful second, Paul thought I was letting him inside. Instead, I stepped onto the porch and pulled the door shut behind me. Show me the document. He opened the folder but kept hold of it. The first page carried the seal of Montgomery County Probate Court. My name appeared halfway down. So did Daniel's. At the top, in bold letters, were the words, Emergency petition regarding disputed fiduciary property. You already filed this? I asked. It was necessary. When? This morning. My mind moved backward through the day. I had discovered the deposit slip less than an hour earlier. You filed before I found the account. Yes. Then why come here now? Because the filing does not prevent you from making things worse. A second email arrived on my phone. This one was from the county's electronic court system. I opened it while Paul watched. A hearing had been scheduled for Monday morning. The petition named me as an interested party. Another phrase appeared farther down. Potential unauthorized claimant. I looked up. You called me an unauthorized claimant. It's legal language. You told a court I might steal money I didn't know existed. I told the court there was a risk. From me? From anyone. You used my name. Paul's patience broke. Because Daniel used your name. The porch went silent. What does that mean? He rubbed one hand across his mouth. For the first time since arriving, he looked frightened. Daniel made you the final confirming party. For what? He shouldn't have done it. For what, Paul? He closed the folder. Sign the disclaimer. Let the attorneys correct the account structure. You'll be protected. Protected from what? From learning things that will not improve your life. I almost laughed. For 23 years, I had accepted that kind of sentence from Daniel. Let me handle it. You don't need to worry. It won't improve anything to discuss it. Trust me. Those phrases had once sounded like marriage. Now they sounded like locks. I stepped closer to Paul. My husband died believing we were poor. No. He died knowing you believed it. The cruelty of the correction struck harder than I expected. Paul seemed to regret it, but he did not take it back. What did Daniel do? I asked. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, he wasn't protecting you, Helen. The lawnmower next door stopped. In the sudden quiet, I heard the faint buzz of insects in the shrubs. Paul continued. He was protecting himself. He held out the document and a pen. Sign it. I took the pages from him. His shoulders lowered slightly. Then I tore the signature page in half. Paul's face changed. Helen. I tore it again. You need to leave. You have no idea what you've just done. You came to my house with a court petition already filed, threatened me, and asked me to surrender rights to an account my husband hid for 23 years. I know exactly what I did. His voice became low and urgent. If you force this into open court, Daniel's name will be destroyed. Then maybe Daniel should have told me the truth while he was alive. Paul snatched the torn pages from my hand. You think there's a heroic explanation waiting for you. There isn't. He walked down the porch steps, then turned. The balance is not an inheritance. It is not a gift. And if you try to claim it, people will come forward who remember what your husband did. He got into his car and drove away. I remained on the porch until the navy sedan disappeared at the end of the street. Then I went inside, locked the door, and called my daughter. Chapter 2. What Poverty Cost Us. Rachel answered on the fourth ring. I'm between patients. Is everything okay? No. The single word brought immediate silence. Mom? I need you to come over. Are you hurt? No. Did something happen with the house? No. Then tell me. I looked toward Daniel's office. The computer screen had gone dark. In the reflection, I saw a 62-year-old woman standing alone in a house she had spent half her life trying to keep. I found an account. What kind of account? A bank account in your father's name. How much? I should have listened to Clara. I should have kept the balance to myself until I understood it. But Rachel was my daughter, and Daniel's lies had shaped her life as much as mine. $55 million. A metal tray clattered in the background. Rachel did not speak. Rachel, say that again. 55 million. Thousand. No. She whispered something I could not hear. Then she said, I'm leaving now. You're working. Not anymore. She arrived 28 minutes later wearing navy scrubs and a hospital jacket tied around her waist. She came through the front door without knocking, dropped her keys on the entry table, and walked straight toward Daniel's office. Show me. The account is frozen. Show me anyway. I opened the bank email and the court notice. Rachel read both. Her face remained still until she reached Paul's petition. Then she pushed the phone back toward me. He knew. Yes. How? I don't know. And Dad's name was on the account? Yes. Was yours? I didn't see it. Rachel turned toward the desk. She had Daniel's dark eyes and my habit of pressing her lips together when angry. Where did you find the information? I showed her the false bottom in the drawer. She crouched beside it and ran her fingers over the empty compartment. Did you find anything else? No. You're sure? I searched once. Then search again. She began removing files. Tax returns. Warranty booklets. Old insurance statements. Receipts arranged by year. Daniel kept every receipt for anything costing more than $20. He had saved proof of a hardware store purchase from 2007, but hidden $55 million beneath a piece of wood. Rachel pulled open the lower drawer. Do you remember when my car died during nursing school? I knew immediately where she was going. Yes. I asked Dad for $800. He said we didn't have it. I rode 2 buses to clinicals for 4 months. I sat down in Daniel's chair. At the time, I believed him. That doesn't make it better. I know. Do you? The question was sharp enough to make me look up. Rachel stood with a stack of documents in her arms. Every time I asked him for anything, you explained him to me, she said. You said he was scared because he'd lost his job. You said he felt ashamed. You said men of his generation didn't know how to talk about money. I was trying to keep peace. You were helping him keep secrets. I didn't know there was an account. No, but you knew he lied. About what? Everything that mattered. That isn't fair. Isn't it? She put the documents on the desk. When I was 17, I asked him what he did at Silver Pines. He said he processed invoices. Years later, Uncle Paul told me Dad ran internal audits. I asked Daniel about that. And? He said Paul exaggerated. You believed him. I believed my husband. You chose not to question your husband. The distinction hurt because it was true. I didn't know what questions to ask. You never wanted to ask. I stood. That's enough. No, Mom. It isn't. $55 million is enough. 23 years is enough. Her voice cracked on the final word. I had expected anger. I had not expected grief. Rachel looked toward the hallway, toward the framed photograph from her college graduation. Daniel stood beside her in the picture with one hand on her shoulder. He watched me cry over loans, she said. He sat at my kitchen table and told me debt builds character. I remember. He knew there was $55 million. We don't know that it was his to spend. Then why hide it? I don't know. Why lie about $600 a month? I don't know. Why did Uncle Paul tell the court you were trying to take it? I don't know. She laughed once, bitterly. You lived with him for 34 years, and every answer is, I don't know. I turned away. On the wall above Daniel's desk hung a small wooden plaque Rachel had made for him in middle school. Best dad in the world. He had kept it even after one corner broke. Did your father ever send you anything before he died? I asked. What do you mean? Letters. Documents. An email that seemed strange. No. She answered too quickly. I looked at her. Rachel folded her arms. What? Nothing. You think I'm hiding something? Are you? No. The lie was not convincing, but I was too exhausted to challenge it. Instead, I told her about Clara's warning. Don't touch it. Rachel repeated. Yes. And you just listened? I logged out. Mom, the bank may be trying to protect itself. She knew Paul's name. What? When I told her my brother-in-law was at the door, she said, Paul Mercer? Rachel sat on the edge of the desk. So the bank knows Uncle Paul is connected. Apparently. And he filed before you found the account. Yes. He was waiting for Dad to die. The sentence made my stomach tighten. Don't say that. Why not? Because we don't know. Dad dies. 6 weeks later, you log into an account. Within minutes, the bank freezes it and Uncle Paul appears with papers already prepared. That isn't coincidence. He said there were systems in place. Meaning alerts. Probably. Rachel began sorting papers into piles. We need an attorney. I can't afford one. She stared at me. The absurdity of the statement hung in the room. You have $55 million frozen in an account. I may not have 5 cents of it. Then we find someone who will give us a consultation. Paul already has attorneys. So he has money, influence, and information we don't have. Rachel leaned toward me. You have something he doesn't. What? He's afraid of you. Paul has never been afraid of me. He came here the moment you logged in. He asked you to sign before explaining anything. He told you Dad's name would be destroyed. That's fear. I thought of Paul's face after I tore the paper. He had been angry. But beneath the anger, she was right. He had been afraid. Rachel lifted one of Daniel's old tax returns. We start with Silver Pines. The name gave me an uneasy feeling. Silver Pine Senior Living had once operated nursing homes and assisted living facilities across Ohio, Indiana, and western Pennsylvania. Daniel joined the company in the late 80s. Paul followed several years later. Daniel was cautious and methodical. Paul was charming and ambitious. By the late 90s, Paul attended charity dinners and appeared in business photographs. Daniel came home with ink stains on his cuffs and complained about spreadsheets. In 2002, Silver Pines collapsed. At least, that was how Daniel described it. He said the company had expanded too quickly and creditors forced restructuring. Paul moved into medical asset management. Daniel said his reputation had been damaged by association, leaving him unable to find comparable work. For the next 2 decades, he handled books for small contractors, a dental office, and 2 restaurants. Or so I had believed. Rachel typed Silver Pines into the computer. The first results were recent references to abandoned properties. She refined the search by date. A newspaper archive appeared. Silver Pines announces restructuring after liquidity crisis. Another headline. Retirees question missing pension contributions. Rachel opened the second article. The text was small and partially blurred, but the first paragraph was readable. More than 400 former employees had been notified that their retirement benefits might be reduced due to underfunding. The estimated shortage was $38 million. Keep reading, I said. Rachel scrolled. Company representatives blamed market losses and accounting irregularities inherited from a prior benefits administrator. A quote from Paul appeared near the bottom. The Mercer family remains committed to every employee who helped build Silver Pines. Rachel made a disgusted sound. Then she stopped. What? She enlarged the next paragraph. A former maintenance supervisor claimed employees had been discouraged from contacting regulators. The name of the executive who spoke to them was not included. But the article referred to him as the company's internal audit director. Daniel. He told me he processed invoices, Rachel said. I know. Did he ever mention the pensions? No. Not once. Not once. The room seemed smaller. I remembered the months after Daniel lost his job. He slept badly. He checked the front window whenever a car slowed near the house. For nearly a year, he kept the television on during dinner to avoid conversation. I had thought he was depressed. Maybe he had been frightened. Rachel searched the county court database. Most of the early case files had not been digitized, but the index showed multiple lawsuits filed against Silver Pines, its directors, and its employee retirement trust. One case remained open under restricted status. The case number matched a reference in Paul's petition. We need the physical file, Rachel said. The courthouse closes at 4. It's 2:15. I reached for my purse. Rachel blinked. What? We're going. A faint smile appeared. It was the first time that day she looked at me with something other than anger. The Montgomery County Courthouse occupied a gray stone building downtown. Security took 15 minutes. Finding the records office took another 10. The clerk behind the counter wore reading glasses on a beaded chain. When I gave her the case number, she typed it into her computer and frowned. This matter has sealed exhibits. I only need the public file. Are you a party? I showed her the electronic notice. She read my name. Helen Mercer. Yes. Her eyes lifted. Related to Daniel Mercer? He was my husband. The woman's expression changed, though I could not tell whether it was recognition or sympathy. She printed a request form. Some documents are stored off-site. What we have here may not be complete. I'll take whatever is available. We waited 40 minutes. Rachel bought coffee from a vending machine and paced the hallway. When the clerk returned, she carried a thick folder bound with red tape. We cannot allow photographs of sealed page references, she said. You may request certified copies of public exhibits. We sat at a narrow table beneath fluorescent lights. The first 100 pages were procedural. Motions. Continuances. Claims by former employees. Statements from company attorneys. Then I found a document titled Preliminary Internal Transfer Authorization. The date was August 17, 2001. 3 signatures appeared at the bottom. One belonged to an outside benefits administrator. One belonged to Paul. The third belonged to Daniel. I knew that signature. He signed birthday cards the same way, with the final line of the R extending beneath the last name. Rachel read the page over my shoulder. What does it authorize? I followed the paragraph with my finger. Temporary transfer of employee retirement reserves into a corporate liquidity account. The funds were supposed to be returned within 90 days. They were not. A handwritten note appeared beside Daniel's signature. Reviewed. Temporary allocation only. No effect on vested benefits. Rachel whispered he approved it. The clerk looked toward us. I lowered my voice. He may not have known. He was the audit director. The paper says temporary. The money disappeared. We don't know what happened afterward. Rachel turned the page. A second transfer occurred 60 days later. Daniel signed that one too. The amount was larger. This time there was no handwritten reassurance. A list of attached exhibits followed, but most were sealed or missing. Near the back of the folder, an old newspaper clipping had been submitted as evidence. The headline read, Workers demand answers after retirement fund losses. A photograph showed former employees gathered outside Silver Pine's headquarters. One man held a cardboard sign. You took our future. Behind the crowd, near the building entrance, stood Daniel. He was younger, thinner, and turned partly away from the camera. But there was no mistaking him. A woman in the crowd pointed toward him. Beneath the photograph, the caption stated that a company executive had urged employees to allow Silver Pine's time to correct the accounting discrepancy before contacting law enforcement. Rachel sat back. He told them not to report it. The courthouse lights hummed above us. I stared at my husband's face in the photograph. A memory returned. August 2001. Daniel had come home late several nights in a row. On the 17th, he sat on the edge of our bed and asked me an unusual question. If you made a mistake at work, would you tell people immediately, even if telling them caused more damage? I had been folding laundry. I thought he meant a tax error or an incorrect invoice. I suppose it depends on whether it can be fixed first, I said. He nodded. Then he kissed my forehead and told me I was a practical woman. For 24 years, I had forgotten that conversation. Daniel had not. The date of the first transfer was August 17th. Rachel touched the photograph. Mom. What? There's something written on the back page. The final public page was a list of exhibits that had once existed in the file. Most were described only by number. Exhibit 42 caught my attention. Original Audit Memorandum D. Mercer. Its status had been marked in red ink. Not received. Presumed destroyed. I thought of Daniel's garage. Of the metal barrel he had used 3 months before his death. Of the blackened pieces of paper drifting upward while he stood in the cold. At the time, he told me he was destroying old client records. I had watched from the kitchen window. When I asked why he could not shred them, he said the documents contained private financial information. I did not question him again. On our way home, Rachel barely spoke. Rain had begun, leaving dark streaks across the windshield. At a red light, she said, "You saw him burning papers." Yes. When? 3 months before he died. And you didn't ask what they were? I did ask. You accepted the answer. Yes. She looked out the passenger window. Why? The light turned green, but the car behind me had to honk before I moved. Because I was tired, I said. Of what? Of every question becoming an argument without raised voices. Rachel turned toward me. I kept my eyes on the road. Your father never shouted, I continued. That made it easy to believe we didn't fight. But he had ways of ending a conversation. He would look disappointed. Or exhausted. He would tell me I was upsetting myself. Eventually, I learned that asking questions cost more energy than accepting the answer. That's not trust. No. What was it? I tightened my hands around the steering wheel. Peace, I thought. And now? Now I think it was surrender. When we reached the house, Rachel went straight to the garage. The metal burn barrel stood near the back wall beneath a plastic sheet. Daniel had drilled holes around the bottom for airflow. Inside, the ashes had settled into a dense black layer. You won't find anything, I said. Maybe not. She put on gardening gloves. We carried the barrel outside beneath the covered patio and emptied the contents into a metal tray. Most of the paper had turned to powder. But paper does not always burn evenly. We found staples. A metal binder clip. The corner of a yellow folder. And beneath the ash, a narrow aluminum label warped by heat. Rachel wiped it with a cloth. Letters emerged. P. Mercer. Below that, smaller words remained visible. Original transfers. Paul Mercer. Original transfers. I sat down on the patio step. Rachel held the label as rain struck the yard beyond us. Dad was destroying evidence, she said. Or protecting it. From whom? I looked at the initials again. P. Mercer. My phone rang inside the house. By the time I reached the kitchen, the call had gone to voicemail. The number belonged to the bank. Clara left a message. Mrs. Mercer, the legal review has been accelerated. Do not attend Monday's hearing without representation. There are parties seeking control of the account, and at least one of them has provided the bank with information concerning your husband's role in the Silver Pines matter. She paused. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. I cannot tell you more by phone. But you should understand one thing before anyone asks you to defend Daniel Mercer. Another pause. Your husband's signature is real. The message ended. Rachel stood in the doorway behind me. She had heard every word. Neither of us spoke. The first question had been whether Daniel hid $55 million. Now the question was worse. Had my husband helped steal it? Chapter 3. The Man in the Photograph. I did not sleep that night. At 3 a.m, I sat at the kitchen table with Daniel's tax returns spread around me. For years, I had believed our finances were simple. My school district salary, Daniel's small consulting income, a mortgage, utilities, health insurance, modest retirement accounts. Now every page looked like a performance. The returns showed Daniel earning between $7,000 and $9,000 a year from Mercer bookkeeping services. That matched his claim of roughly $600 a month. But there were inconsistencies. Mileage deductions far beyond what local clients should require. Professional fees paid to firms in Columbus, Cincinnati, and Washington, D.C. Postage expenses large enough to suggest hundreds of certified mailings. Most striking was a recurring line under miscellaneous business expenses. Records recovery and compliance support. The amount changed each year. $4,000, $6,000, $11,000. In some years, the expense exceeded Daniel's reported income. I had signed joint returns without asking how that was possible. At 5:30, Rachel came downstairs wearing one of Daniel's old sweatshirts. "You're still awake? I found these." She read the lines I had circled. "Where did the money come from to pay the expenses?" "I don't know. Maybe he had another income source. Then he hid that too." Rachel poured coffee. "After a moment," she said, "there's something I didn't tell you." I waited. She sat across from me. "Dad emailed me 3 days before his stroke." "What did he say?" "I don't know." "You said he emailed you." "It was encrypted." "The message told me to download an attachment and save it somewhere safe." "Did you?" "No." "Why not?" Her eyes lowered. We'd argued. About what? My student loans. Daniel had promised for years that when his situation improved, he would help Rachel pay them. His situation never improved. At least, that was what he claimed. "He called me irresponsible," she said. "He said I should have paid them off by now. I told him maybe I could have if he hadn't spent my entire childhood pretending every dollar was the last dollar on earth." "What did he say?" "Nothing." He hung up. "And then he sent the email?" 2 days later. "Do you still have it?" "I deleted it." My chest tightened. "Rachel." I was angry. "Can you recover it?" "Maybe. It might still be in trash unless it was permanently deleted." She opened her phone and searched. Nothing appeared. "We'll check your computer later," I said. "What if it's gone?" "Then we find another way." The certainty in my own voice surprised me. For most of my marriage, uncertainty made me stop. Now it pushed me forward. At 8, I called the courthouse and asked for a list of attorneys who had represented employee claimants in the Silver Pines case. The clerk could not recommend anyone, but she gave me names from public filings. 3 were retired. 1 had died. The 5th, Martin Shaw, maintained a small office in Dayton. His receptionist offered an appointment 2 weeks away. When I mentioned Daniel Mercer, the line went silent. "Can you come at 10:30? She asked. Martin Shaw's office occupied the 2nd floor of an old brick building above a pharmacy. He was 71, thin, and wore a hearing aid behind his left ear. He did not offer coffee. He did not ask how I was coping with Daniel's death. Instead, he placed a legal pad on the desk and said, "Tell me exactly what you found." I described the deposit slip, the account, Clara's warning, Paul's visit, and the court petition. Martin wrote without interrupting. When I finished, he removed his glasses. "Did you move any money?" "No." "Attempt to." The transfer page opened, but I didn't enter an amount. "Did you download account statements?" "No." "Did you tell anyone besides your daughter?" "No." "Good." "Why?" "Because the account has been disputed for years." "Years." He nodded. "Most people involved believed it no longer existed." How does $55 million disappear from everyone's attention? It didn't disappear. It became fragmented. He drew a line across the paper. Silver Pines moved employee retirement assets through several entities. Some money funded company operations. Some covered debt. Some vanished into affiliated businesses. When regulators became involved, records were incomplete. Assets were recovered in pieces over 2 decades. And Daniel's account? I've never seen the account itself. But you knew about it. I knew there was supposed to be a recovery vehicle controlled by a cooperating fiduciary. Daniel? That was suspected. Was he a criminal? Martin studied me. That is not a yes or no question. It is to a wife. No, he said gently. To a wife, it is several questions pretending to be one. I said nothing. He continued. Did Daniel sign improper transfers? Yes. Did he know everything at the beginning? Probably not. Did he know enough to stop the second transfer? I believe he did. The words felt different coming from a stranger. More final. Why wasn't he charged? The government never publicly identified every cooperating witness. Was Daniel one? I cannot confirm sealed proceedings. That sounds like yes. It sounds like I am respecting the law. Paul said Daniel was protecting himself. Paul says many things that contain enough truth to make the lie effective. What does Paul want? Martin leaned back. His company is reportedly negotiating a sale. I know. If the Silver Pines liabilities attach to the successor entities, that sale could collapse. Would the $55 million cover the pensions? Possibly. Depending on interest, claimant verification, and administrative costs. Then why doesn't Paul let it go to them? Because releasing the account may require findings about how the money was taken and who controlled the transfers. He wants the money hidden to protect himself, or redirected through a settlement that limits admissions. What does Daniel have to do with that? Martin turned to a filing cabinet. He removed a thin folder and placed a photograph on the desk. It was the same protest scene from the courthouse file, but larger and clearer. Daniel stood near the entrance. Beside him was Paul. On Daniel's other side stood a man I did not recognize. Martin tapped the stranger's face. Robert Vance. Outside Benefits Administrator. One of the signatures on the transfer document. Where is he now? Federal prison. Different fraud case. He never testified publicly about Silver Pines. Could he testify now? He's 78 and in poor health. Martin moved his finger to Paul. Paul controlled expansion financing. Then to Daniel. Daniel controlled internal review. And Vance controlled the pension account? On paper. Who controlled it in reality? That is the $55 million question. I looked at Daniel's face. He was not looking at the protesters. He was looking at Paul. What did Daniel tell the employees that day? Martin's expression became guarded. You know, I read the newspaper article. He asked them to wait. Why? He claimed funds would be restored within weeks. Were they? No. How many people lost pensions? 412 direct participants. More spouses and beneficiaries. I imagined 400 families sitting at kitchen tables like mine, calculating what they could no longer afford. Did anyone lose their home? Yes. Medical care? Yes. Did anyone die waiting? Martin looked down at his legal pad. Yes. The word carried no drama. That made it worse. I thought of every time Daniel told me money was tight. Had he believed poverty was a punishment he deserved? Had he forced Rachel and me to serve the same sentence? Why did you agree to meet me so quickly? I asked. Martin closed the folder. Because 17 years ago, Daniel came to this office. My pulse quickened. What did he want? He asked what would happen if the original audit memorandum were recovered. The one listed as destroyed? Yes. What did you tell him? That it could reopen claims and establish who knew what and when. Did he have it? He did not say. Did you ever see him again? Twice. What did he bring? Questions. Never documents. What kind of questions? How recovered money could be protected. Whether an intermediary account would be considered personal property. Whether a spouse could complete a fiduciary act after the account holder's death. I stared at him. He asked about me? Not by name. When? The last time was 8 months ago. Daniel had been preparing. Not for his stroke, perhaps, but for an ending. Why didn't he tell me? Martin's answer came without hesitation. Shame. You sound sure. I spent 35 years representing people who had been cheated by employers, partners, brothers, and spouses. Men keep secrets for many reasons. Money. Fear. Pride. But men like Daniel keep them longest when the truth makes it impossible to remain the person their family believes them to be. Did he want to fix it? Yes. Then why not come forward? Because fixing damage and admitting responsibility are not the same act. I stood and walked toward the window. Below us, people entered and left the pharmacy carrying white paper bags. Ordinary errands. Ordinary lives. I need you to represent me. Martin was silent. I turned. Will you? I'm retired from active litigation. You still have an office. I consult. Then consult me. He almost smiled. This case could become expensive. I have a pension and some savings. Paul's legal team could consume both. Then we find another arrangement. What are you asking me to accomplish? The question made me pause. Yesterday, I would have said I wanted the money. That answer already felt wrong. I want to know what Daniel did. And after you know, I'll decide what belongs to me. Martin nodded once. That is a better answer than most people give. He agreed to appear with me at Monday's preliminary hearing for a limited fee. Before I left, he handed me a list of former Silver Pines employees. Start with the first 3 names, he said. They organized the original complaint. What should I ask? Don't ask whether they thought Daniel was guilty. Why not? Because they will tell you. What should I ask instead? Ask what Daniel promised. The first name on the list belonged to Samuel Green. He lived in a 1-story house in Kettering with aluminum siding and a wheelchair ramp. A woman in her 70s opened the door. When I introduced myself, she tried to close it. Please, I said. I'm trying to understand what happened. You had 20 years to understand. I didn't know. She laughed without humor. That's what your husband said. Is Mr. Green here? My husband died 8 years ago. I'm sorry. Are you? The question was not cruel. It was tired. I told her about the account. Not the exact balance, but enough. Her hand tightened around the door. Come inside. Her name was Margaret. The living room contained photographs of a large family. In several, Samuel wore a gray Silver Pines maintenance uniform. Margaret sat in a recliner and pointed to the sofa. Sam worked there 29 years, she said. Boilers, plumbing, electrical repairs. He could fix anything except what those men did to him. What did they do? They told him his pension would pay $2,800 a month. Then it became $1,600. Then $900. By the time the lawsuit started, we received less than $4. What did Daniel promise? Her eyes sharpened. So you know to ask that? I was advised. He stood in front of more than 100 employees and said the money had been moved temporarily. He said no one would lose a dime. Did he believe it? I don't know. What did you think? I thought he looked sick. Sick. Not ill. Afraid. Of Paul. Margaret did not answer directly. She rose slowly and walked toward a cabinet. From a drawer, she removed an envelope. Your husband came here 11 years ago. I stared at her. Why? He apologized. For what? For asking Sam to wait before going to the authorities. Did he admit taking the money? No. He said he signed papers he should have refused to sign. Said he believed Paul could replace the funds after a property sale. Did he give you money? She opened the envelope. Inside were photocopies of cashier's checks. $600 each. One every August. He sent these anonymously at first, she said. Sam figured it out from the postmark. My throat tightened. How many? 11 before Sam died. Then they continued in my name. Why 600? He said it was what he could spare. The same amount Daniel told me he earned each month. I looked at the checks. They came from different banks and money orders. No personal account was listed. Did he send these to other people? I know of at least 6 families. He told me he only made $600 a month. Margaret's expression changed. For the first time, She looked at me not as an enemy, but as another person Daniel had deceived. Maybe that was what he allowed himself to keep. The thought disturbed me more than hidden wealth. If Daniel had lived on $600 by choice, then our poverty had not been an accident. It had been a private sentence. One he imposed on all of us without asking. Did he ever mention an original audit memorandum? I asked. Margaret's eyes moved toward the window. He said there was one document Paul would burn the whole world to find. Did Daniel have it? He said he knew where truth could survive. What does that mean? I asked him the same thing. And? He said, Helen keeps everything that matters, even when she doesn't know why. A chill moved over my arms. What did he mean? I assumed you knew. I thought of our house. 34 years of photographs, receipts, holiday cards, school programs, insurance policies, and boxes Daniel insisted we never throw away. The answer might already be there. Before I left, Margaret handed me one of the cashier's check copies. On the memo line, Daniel had written, August 17th. Still owed. The date of the first transfer. The date repeated on his calendars. When I returned home, Rachel was sitting on the kitchen floor beside a cardboard box. What happened? She held up Daniel's old day planner. I found something. Every August 17th for 19 consecutive years, Daniel had written the same 2 words. Still owed. Beneath the most recent entry was a sequence of letters and numbers. At first, it looked meaningless. Then Rachel placed her phone beside it. It matches the first part of the password hint from the email Dad sent me. You recovered it? Not all of it. The attachment is still encrypted. What does the message say? She handed me the phone. Daniel's final email to his daughter contained only 4 lines. Rachel, I know you are angry, and you have every right to be. Save the attachment. Your mother will know the rest. Do not trust Paul with the original. Below the message was a locked file. Rachel looked up at me. He knew he was running out of time. Maybe. What do you know that completes the password? Nothing. He said you would. He overestimated me. Or you've forgotten something. I sat beside her on the floor. The day planner lay between us. August 17th. Still owed. The account. The original transfers. A phrase rose from memory. For decades, Daniel wrote the same sentence in every anniversary card. Even in years when we were angry. Even when we could afford nothing more than grocery store flowers. What we keep is what we owe each other. I said the words aloud. Rachel typed them into the password field. The file opened. Inside were 3 documents. One was a list of names. One was a scanned handwritten ledger. The third was an audio recording dated 4 days before Daniel's stroke. Rachel pressed play. For several seconds, we heard only Daniel breathing. Then my husband's voice filled the kitchen. Helen, before you forgive me, you need to know what I did. The recording cut off. A message appeared. File corrupted. Partial recovery only. Rachel tried again. The same sentence played. Nothing more. I stared at the phone. Daniel had left me a confession. And someone or something had ensured I could hear only the beginning. Chapter 4. The missing half of the truth. Rachel replayed the recording 6 times. Each time, Daniel's voice ended at the same place. Helen, before you forgive me, you need to know what I did. Then silence. Not the natural silence of a man pausing to gather himself. A digital silence. Flat and absolute. Rachel turned the phone over as though the missing words might be hiding behind it. It says the file was corrupted during upload. Can you recover it? I don't know. You work in a hospital. You know people. I know nurses and respiratory therapists, Mom. Not federal computer experts. Someone must know. She looked at the scanned ledger again. It consisted of handwritten dates, account codes, initials, and dollar amounts. Some entries were circled in red. Others had short notes beside them. Returned through settlement. Located under affiliate. Claimant deceased. Spouse verified. Near the bottom of the final page, Daniel had written, balance confirmed, $55,084,219.17. The exact amount I had seen online. This was not an old record. The entry was dated 12 days before his stroke. Daniel had checked that account less than 2 weeks before he died. Rachel enlarged the names list. More than 400 people appeared in alphabetical order. Some had a check mark. Some had the letter D beside them. Others were highlighted in yellow. What does the D mean? She asked. Deceased, probably. She nodded reluctantly. Halfway down the page, we found Samuel Green. A checkmark appeared beside his name. Beneath it, Margaret Green was listed as verified spouse. The account was connected to the missing pensions. There was no longer any reasonable doubt. I need to call Martin, I said. At this hour? It's only 7. On a Saturday. He gave me his cell number. Martin answered after 2 rings. I told him about the encrypted email, the ledger, the list, and the damaged recording. His first response was not excitement. It was alarm. Do not email those files to anyone. We already opened them. Disconnect the computer from the internet. Why? Because if Daniel believed Paul was monitoring the account, he may also have believed someone was monitoring his communications. Rachel unplugged the router before I finished repeating the instruction. Martin asked me to read several lines from the ledger. When I reached the final balance, he became silent. That amount matches the bank account, he asked. To the cent. Then Daniel had access to current reconciliation records. What does that mean? It means he was not merely holding an old account. He was still actively involved in the recovery process. Was that legal? It could be, if he was operating under a court order or cooperation agreement. And if he wasn't? Then we have a different problem. He told us to print the documents on a local printer, place the originals on a flash drive, and make 2 sealed copies. 1 copy stays with you, he said. 1 comes to me. Do not bring the only copy to court. What about the recording? I know a forensic audio specialist in Cincinnati. How long will it take? If the file structure is intact, perhaps a day. If data is missing, no one can restore what was never saved. Daniel's first sentence echoed in my mind. Before you forgive me. Not if. Before. As though he assumed forgiveness would come after explanation. That assumption angered me. Even dead, Daniel was still arranging the order in which I should feel things. Martin, I said, did Daniel ever tell you what was in the recording? No. Did he tell you he was leaving one? He said there would be a statement if he could not complete the process himself. What process? The release of recovered funds. Why couldn't he release them while he was alive? That is the question we need answered before Monday. After we hung up, Rachel carried the printer into the kitchen because Daniel's office suddenly felt exposed. Each page emerged slowly. Names. Dates. Dollar amounts. Lives reduced to rows. I watched the list grow across the table. 412 employees. Some had died. Some had surviving spouses. Some had no verified beneficiary. The money on the computer screen had seemed impossible and abstract. The names changed it. $55 million was not wealth. It was a room full of people waiting 20 years for someone to tell the truth. At 9 that night, someone drove slowly past the house. The car continued to the corner, turned, and came back. Rachel moved toward the window. Don't. She stopped behind the curtain and looked through a narrow gap. Black SUV. Do you recognize it? No. The vehicle remained at the curb for less than a minute, then drove away. Maybe it's nothing, I said. Dad trained you well. I looked at her. Everything was always nothing until it became too late. Her words were unfair. They were also deserved. I called the non-emergency police number and reported the vehicle. The dispatcher asked whether anyone had threatened me. I thought of Paul saying I could lose my house. Not directly. Do you have a license plate? No. She advised us to lock the doors and call again if the vehicle returned. Rachel slept on the sofa. I took the ledger upstairs and placed it beneath my mattress. At 2 a.m, I woke to the sound of breaking glass. I sat upright. For one confused moment, I expected Daniel beside me. Then the security alarm began shrieking downstairs. Rachel shouted from the living room. "Mom!" I grabbed my phone and locked the bedroom door. "Are you safe?" "I'm in the hallway. Don't go downstairs." "I'm already downstairs." Her footsteps moved quickly across the hardwood. I called 911. The alarm continued, then stopped. The silence afterward was worse. Rachel appeared at the bedroom door holding the fireplace poker. "The kitchen window is broken." "Did anyone come in?" "I don't think so." Police arrived 8 minutes later. A landscaping stone lay on the kitchen floor among broken glass. Wrapped around it was a sheet of paper. The officer unfolded it carefully. Only one sentence had been typed in the center. "Daniel destroyed the original for a reason." The officer asked whether we knew what it meant. Rachel and I looked at each other. "No," I said. It was the first lie I told for the purpose of finding truth. The police photographed the note and took it as evidence. They found no fingerprints on the stone. No camera captured the person who threw it. Our old porch camera had stopped working in December, and Daniel had insisted replacement could wait. After the officers left, Rachel stood in the kitchen wearing slippers among the glittering pieces of glass. "We're going to Martin's," she said. "It's almost 3. We're not staying here. This is my home. It's a house with a broken window and someone who knows what we found. I'm not leaving." "Mom." "No." The firmness in my voice stopped her. For 34 years, this house had been the place where Daniel decided what I needed to know. I would not let Paul, or anyone else, turn it into another place where fear made my choices. "We'll move the files," I said. "But I'm staying." Rachel stared at me for several seconds. Then she nodded. "Fine. Then I'm staying too." At dawn, Martin arrived carrying coffee and a small fireproof document case. He read the typed message twice. "Daniel destroyed the original for a reason," he repeated. "Maybe whoever sent this thinks it's gone," Rachel said. "Or wants us to believe it is." I showed him the warped metal label from the burn barrel. "P. Mercer, Original Transfers." Martin turned it over. "Daniel burned a file marked with Paul's name. Doesn't that prove he destroyed evidence?" Rachel asked. "Not necessarily. The label proves only that a folder burned. What else would have been in it? Copies, notes, decoys." "Why burn a decoy?" I asked. "To make someone watching believe the original no longer existed." The idea unsettled me. Daniel had always seemed cautious. Now his caution looked like strategy. "How long do you think he knew someone was watching him?" Rachel asked. Martin returned the label. "Possibly years." "Then why keep us in the house?" "He may have believed ignorance protected you." "He was wrong," I said. Martin met my eyes. Yes. It was the first time anyone had said it so plainly. No excuse. No gentle reframing. Daniel had been wrong. Martin placed the printed files into the document case. "I'll take these to a secure office. The audio specialist can examine the recording this afternoon." "Will it be ready before court?" "He'll try." "What happens Monday?" "Paul's attorneys will argue that the account is disputed fiduciary property and that you should have no access. That part may be true. They will also likely argue that Daniel acted beyond his authority, which could allow them to move control to another administrator. Paul? A corporate trustee connected to his company, more likely. So he would still control it. Indirectly. What do we argue? That no transfer occurs until the court reviews Daniel's final instructions and the account's beneficiary structure. What if the judge asks whether I want the money? Martin studied me. Do you? No. Rachel looked toward me. I continued. I want to know whether any part legally belongs to Daniel's estate. But I don't want to claim money owed to those families. That distinction matters, Martin said. It didn't yesterday. What changed? I looked at the names spread across the kitchen table. I stopped seeing a balance and started seeing people. Martin closed the case. Then say exactly that. Before leaving, he gave me one more warning. Paul will not attack you as greedy. Why not? Because greed is obvious. He'll attack you as unstable, confused by grief, and manipulated by your daughter. Rachel folded her arms. He doesn't know me very well. Martin looked at her. He knows exactly enough. Monday morning, the probate courtroom was nearly full. I had expected an administrative hearing with a clerk and a few lawyers. Instead, 2 rows of former Silver Pines employees sat behind us. Some used canes. One woman held a photograph of her deceased husband. Reporters stood near the rear wall. Paul entered with 4 attorneys. He wore a charcoal suit and a blue tie. Emily walked beside him carrying a laptop case. I had not seen my niece in nearly 3 years. She resembled her father around the eyes, but had Daniel's careful way of observing a room before speaking. When she saw me, her expression tightened. She gave a small nod. Paul did not acknowledge me. The judge was a woman in her late 50s named Rebecca Collins. She reviewed the emergency petition, the bank's temporary restriction, and the disputed account classification. Paul's lead attorney spoke first. He described the funds as recovered corporate assets temporarily registered through Daniel for administrative convenience. Mr. Mercer's widow, he said, appears to have mistaken the account for a personal inheritance. Martin stood. My client made no such claim. The bank's records show she accessed the account after discovering a deposit slip hidden among her late husband's belongings. She initiated a transfer screen. She did not enter an amount, designate a recipient, or move funds. The attorney turned slightly toward me. Mrs. Mercer also disclosed the account to third parties despite compliance instructions. Rachel shifted in her seat. Martin answered before I could react. She disclosed it to her daughter and legal counsel. Neither act constitutes attempted conversion. The judge raised a hand. I am less concerned with family conversation than with current authority. Who presently holds lawful control? A bank attorney rose from another table. The account remains frozen. Midwestern Union Bank recognizes no individual with unrestricted withdrawal authority. Was Daniel Mercer an owner? He was the named fiduciary representative. Was he a beneficiary? Not in full. The phrase moved through the room. Not in full, meaning some portion might belong to him. Paul's attorney seized on it. Daniel Mercer's fiduciary authority terminated at death. The court should appoint an institutional successor immediately. Which institution? The judge asked. Mercer Health Asset Management has proposed Northline Trust. Martin placed a document before the court. Northline Trust is currently advising Mercer Health on its pending sale. The judge looked toward Paul's table. Is that correct? Paul's attorney hesitated. It provides certain consulting services. Then it is not independent. We can identify another institution. Martin continued. The more immediate issue is that Daniel Mercer designated a final confirming party before successor appointment. The judge read the filing. Helen Mercer. Yes. Paul leaned toward his attorney and whispered. The judge looked at me. Mrs. Mercer, do you understand what that designation means? No, Your Honor. At present, neither do I. A few people in the room laughed softly. The judge did not. Mr. Shaw, do you possess the document establishing her authority? We possess evidence that Daniel intended her to confirm beneficiary records and submit a final audit memorandum. Do you possess the memorandum? Not yet. Paul's attorney stood. Because it does not exist. Daniel destroyed it. A murmur moved through the former employees. The judge looked at Martin. Response? We have reason to believe copies or related records survive. What reason? I felt Martin hesitate. If he revealed the ledger now, Paul would know exactly what we had. Martin said, Daniel left a current beneficiary reconciliation matching the frozen balance. Paul turned toward me for the first time. His expression revealed more than anger. Recognition. He knew about the ledger. Or had suspected it existed. His attorney demanded production. Martin objected, citing the broken window, the threat, and the need to secure evidence before disclosure. The judge ordered both sides to preserve all records and scheduled a full evidentiary hearing in 10 days. Until then, the account would remain frozen. Neither Paul nor his company could appoint a successor trustee. I would retain provisional confirming party status. All parties had to disclose any Silver Pines records in their possession. It was not victory. But Paul had failed to take control. Outside the courtroom, former employees surrounded us. Some thanked me. Others demanded to know whether Daniel had stolen their money. One man shouted that my family had lived comfortably while his wife rationed insulin. I wanted to tell him our furnace had failed twice, that Rachel had taken buses, that I had worn the same winter coat for 11 years. But our hardship did not erase his. I don't know everything yet, I told them. But I will not sign the money over to Paul or any company connected to him. The man stepped closer. And your husband? I looked toward the courthouse doors. Paul stood inside speaking to reporters. I will not lie for him either. The crowd became quiet. Behind them, Clara Gwynn waited near the steps. She wore a gray coat and held a sealed envelope. When the others moved away, she approached me. You did well in there. You told me not to discuss the account. I told you not to discuss it before you had protection. Is that what the freeze was? Partly. She handed the envelope to Martin. Bank production order. Public portion only. What's inside? I asked. Clara looked at me. Something your husband refused to collect. The envelope contained a statement from a federal recovery fund. A payment had been approved to Daniel 18 years earlier. Confidential Cooperating Party Award, $3,840,000. Status: unclaimed. Rachel read the number twice. Dad could have taken almost $4 million. Yes, Clara said. Why didn't he? He submitted annual deferrals. For 18 years? Yes. What reason did he give? Clara removed a copy of Daniel's handwritten instruction. The sentence was short. No personal payment until every verified beneficiary is restored. Rachel looked at me. For the first time since the account appeared, her anger weakened. Not disappeared. Only weakened. Daniel had denied us a better life while millions waited legally in his name. Was that sacrifice? Or another decision he had made for us without permission? Clara seemed to understand the question on my face. This does not make him innocent, she said. Why are you helping me? She looked toward the group of former employees. An elderly Asian man stood among them, leaning on a walker. My father worked maintenance at Silver Pines for 31 years. The photograph on her desk. The uniform. He lost his pension? Most of it. Did Daniel send your family money? Clara's expression changed. You know about the checks. $600 every August. My mother received 3 before she died. Did you know they came from him? Not until later. Do you forgive him? She took a long breath. That is not a bank question. No. My father says Daniel was the only executive who ever came back and looked him in the eye. That isn't an answer. It is the only one I have. She turned to leave, then stopped. Mrs. Mercer, Paul's team requested a historical access log last week. Access to what? The restricted account. Did the bank give it to him? No. What would it show? Who monitored the balance and when? Daniel? And someone else. Who? Clara looked toward Martin. I cannot disclose it without a court order. Was it Paul? I cannot answer. Then why tell me? Because the other user accessed the account 2 hours after Daniel's stroke. She walked away before I could ask another question. Daniel had been unconscious in the hospital. Someone had logged into the account while I sat beside his bed. Someone who already knew he might never wake up. Chapter 5. The Price of Silence. The black SUV returned that afternoon. This time, it stopped in front of the house. Emily stepped out. She carried no briefcase. No attorney accompanied her. Rachel watched from the living room window. Are you going to let her in? I don't know. She works for Paul. She's also my niece. So was Judas somebody's nephew. Despite myself, I smiled. That isn't how that story works. You understand the point. Emily knocked once. I opened the door but did not invite her inside. Aunt Helen. What do you want? To speak privately. Your father already tried that. I'm not here for him. That would be more convincing if he didn't sign your paychecks. Pain flickered across her face. Good, I thought. Then immediately felt ashamed. Emily was not Paul. Not yet. I saw the broken window report, she said. How? It was attached to Martin's court filing. Did your father do it? No. You answered quickly. Because he wouldn't. You sound like I used to. Her expression hardened. I came to warn you. About what? Not on the porch. I studied her. Emily had always been serious, even as a child. She read instruction manuals before opening toys. At family dinners, she listened more than she spoke. Daniel once said she would make an excellent auditor. Paul sent her to law school instead. I stepped aside. Rachel remained in the living room with her arms folded. Emily noticed her. This concerns Aunt Helen. It concerns my father too. Rachel. No. People have spent 20 years telling women in this family which conversations concern them. Emily looked at me. I closed the door. She stays. We sat at the dining table. Emily placed her phone in the center and switched it off. Then she removed a small black device from her coat pocket. What is that? Rachel asked. Signal detector. She moved it slowly around the room. The device remained silent until she passed Daniel's old cordless phone base. A red light flashed. Emily unplugged it. Old equipment can produce false readings, she said. But don't discuss strategy near it. You think the house is bugged? I asked. I think my father has used private investigators. Rachel laughed once. And you said he didn't break the window? He prefers cleaner methods. The answer disturbed me because it sounded honest. Emily leaned forward. My father believes Daniel left evidence that could connect Mercer Health to Silver Pine's liabilities. Did he? I don't know. You're the company's compliance counsel. I'm outside internal finance. That seems convenient. It was intentional. Whose intention? My father's. The room became quiet. Emily looked down at her hands. For years, I assumed he kept me away from legacy records because he didn't want me distracted by old litigation. After Daniel died, he asked me to review a transfer waiver. The document he brought here? A version of it. What did you find? The legal description did more than disclaim estate rights. It would have transferred Helen's confirming authority to Northline Trust. So Paul lied. Yes. The word came softly. No excuse. No qualification. Rachel's posture changed. Why tell us now? Because he asked me to sign a certification stating that all historical Silver Pines records had been disclosed to federal investigators. Had they? I couldn't verify it. Did you sign? No. Then what happened? My access to the archive was removed. I thought of Paul's fear in the courtroom. He knows you're questioning him. Yes. Does he know you came here? No. Rachel glanced toward the window. The SUV is not subtle. It belongs to the company's car service. I wanted him to think I was meeting a client nearby. That doesn't make sense. It will when the driver's log shows a law office 2 blocks away. Emily had planned carefully. Like Daniel. Tell me what you know, I said. She opened a paper folder. Inside was a copy of the first transfer authorization. The same one from the courthouse. Daniel's signature. Paul's signature. Robert Vance's signature. But this copy contained an attachment missing from the public file. A handwritten note from Daniel. Paul, cash projection, still does not support full restoration within 90 days. I will not approve additional transfer without board disclosure. The note was dated 4 days before the second transfer. But he signed the second transfer, Rachel said. Yes. Why? Emily turned the page. A second note appeared. This one was from Paul. Daniel, failure to proceed will trigger lender default, immediate closure of 11 facilities, and termination of 1,300 employees. Temporary bridge approved by executive committee. Do not create unnecessary panic. He pressured him, I said. He gave him a choice, Emily replied. That wasn't a choice. It was. A terrible one, but still a choice. Her answer reminded me why she became a lawyer. Did the executive committee approve it? I asked. No minutes exist. Meaning Paul invented the approval. Possibly. Do you believe him? Emily's eyes moved toward Daniel's photograph on the wall. I believe my father has spent 24 years telling himself that if the company had survived another 6 months, every dollar would have been restored. But it didn't survive. No. And he never admitted what he did. No. Why? Because by the time the collapse happened, admitting the transfers would have meant prison, lawsuits, and the end of everything he thought he was protecting. His money, his employees, his reputation, his family, himself. People rarely protect only one thing. The sentence was more generous than Paul deserved. Perhaps Emily needed it to remain true. What do you want from me? I asked. Do not release the ledger yet. Why? Because the names list is incomplete. Martin had warned us not to trust appearances. What's missing? Secondary claims. What does that mean? Some former employees sold pension claims to settlement companies for pennies on the dollar. Others died without verified heirs. If the account is distributed using Daniel's current list, several million could go to entities that bought claims through coercive contracts. So the list is wrong? Not wrong. Outdated. Did your father arrange those purchases? Emily did not answer. Rachel leaned forward. Did he? Companies connected to Mercer Health purchased some claims. There it was. The deeper purpose. Paul did not merely want the account hidden. He wanted to profit from repayment. If the money is released, I said slowly, his companies could collect part of it. Potentially. How much? Between 9 and 14 million. Rachel stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. He stole their pensions, waited until they were desperate, bought their claims cheaply, and now wants the recovered money. Emily's face tightened. He will say the purchases were legal. Were they? Some were. That isn't what I asked. No, Emily said. Not all of them. The conflict changed shape. Until that moment, Paul's behavior could still be described as cowardice and concealment. Now there was a second layer. He had turned old harm into new profit. Why didn't Daniel update the list? I asked. He may have been trying to. The balance was confirmed 12 days before his stroke. Emily looked surprised. You have a recent ledger? I immediately regretted saying it. Rachel answered before Emily could ask more. We have enough. Emily nodded slowly. My father believes Daniel transferred the final audit memorandum to you. I don't have it. You may have it without knowing. Margaret Green had said almost the same thing. Helen keeps everything that matters, even when she doesn't know why. What did Daniel mean by the original? I asked. Not the transfer authorization. Everyone has copies of that. Then what? A memo prepared after the second transfer. It reportedly identifies who ordered it, who objected, what collateral was promised, and when the repayment plan became impossible. Why is it important? Because it separates bad judgment from intentional fraud. And who does it incriminate? My father. She said it with visible effort. What about Daniel? It may incriminate him too. Then why would he preserve it? Because he stopped trying to prove he was innocent. The sentence struck me. That was the change I was still struggling to make. Daniel had not left a path toward innocence. He had left a path toward completeness. Emily reached into her coat and removed a small brass key. Daniel gave this to me at Thanksgiving last year. You saw him. He came to my office. Why didn't anyone tell me? He asked me not to. Anger rose immediately. Another private arrangement. Another decision made around me. What did he say? That if Paul ever asked me to certify the old records, I should refuse and give you this. What is it open? I don't know. She placed it on the table. The key had no label. Only a number etched into the side. 317. Rachel picked it up. A safe deposit box? Possibly. Which bank? Emily shook her head. Daniel said you would recognize the number. I stared at it. 317. March 17th? Room 317? A house number? Then I remembered. For 28 years, Daniel and I rented the same cabin near Hocking Hills for our anniversary. Cabin 317. Not every year. Only when we could afford it. Or when Daniel claimed we could. The cabin belonged to a family-run lodge called Cedar Hollow. 3 years earlier, Daniel insisted we stop going because the drive was too hard on the car. Cedar Hollow, I said. Rachel looked at me. The anniversary cabin? I nodded. Emily stood. My father has started an internal review. When he learns I accessed archived files, I may lose my job. Come with us, Rachel said. No. You just admitted he's covering fraud. He's still my father. And Daniel is mine. The two women looked at each other. Different daughters. Same damage. Emily picked up her phone. I'm not ready to help destroy him. But you're willing to help us find the truth, I said. She paused. Yes. That may be the same thing. I know. At the door, she turned. There's one more thing. What? The historical access log Clara mentioned. You know who logged in after Daniel's stroke? Emily's face lost color. My credentials were used. Rachel stepped forward. You accessed the account? No. Then who did? My father knew my password. The black SUV carried her away. Rachel stood beside me at the window. Do you believe her? I believe she wants to believe she didn't know. That wasn't the question. No. Do you trust her? No. Are we going to Cedar Hollow? Yes. When? I picked up the brass key. Now. Cedar Hollow Lodge sat 3 hours southeast of Dayton, hidden among wooded hills and narrow roads. Rachel drove while I searched old reservation emails. Cabin 317 no longer appeared on the lodge website. When I called, the woman at the front desk said the property had been renovated and renumbered. I asked whether any personal storage remained connected to the old cabins. The woman became cautious. What name was the reservation under? Daniel Mercer. Silence. Are you Helen? I gripped the phone. Yes. Mr. Mercer left instructions. What instructions? That if you ever called, I should ask what you keep. The phrase from the anniversary cards. What we keep is what we owe each other, I said. The woman exhaled. Come before 5. We arrived at 4:42. The lodge looked smaller than I remembered. The front desk clerk introduced herself as June. She was in her late 60s and had owned the property with her husband for decades. "I'm sorry about Daniel," she said. "You knew he died? He sent a letter last year. Said if he stopped renewing the storage payment and you contacted us, we should verify the obituary." "What storage?" June led us behind the office to a row of old lockers used by long-term guests. Locker 317 stood at the end. The brass key fit. Inside was a metal document box. No money. No jewelry. Only a stack of anniversary cards tied with blue ribbon and a sealed brown envelope. My name was written across the front. "Helen, read the cards first." Rachel touched my arm. "You don't have to do this here." "Yes, I do." We sat at a picnic table behind the lodge. The cards began in 1997. Most contained familiar messages. "Thank you for your patience. Next year will be easier. I'm sorry we couldn't do more. What we keep is what we owe each other." But after 2001, Daniel had written tiny numbers beneath the printed barcode on each card. I had never noticed. Rachel arranged them by year. The numbers formed page references. The final card contained instructions. Match each year to the ledger. Use the first word of every marked line. The handwritten ledger from the email was not merely a financial record. It was a cipher. Rachel opened the scanned copy on her laptop. We followed the references. Each marked line began with a word. Original. Memorandum. Filed. Under. Mercer. Family. Insurance. Archive. Insurance archive, Rachel said. Daniel's life insurance policies were stored in a fireproof cabinet at home. We had already searched it. Or thought we had. The brown envelope contained a letter. Not the confession. A direction. "Helen, if you are reading this, I failed to finish what I should have finished years ago. The memorandum is not in this box. I learned long ago that any place Paul knew I visited could not safely hold it. You have signed your name beside it more than 20 times. I am sorry that I made your trust into a hiding place. Daniel." I read the final sentence again. "I made your trust into a hiding place." He knew exactly what he had done. Signed beside it, Rachel said. Tax returns. Insurance forms. Mortgage documents. Annual school benefits. Then I understood. Every year, as a school employee, I reviewed health and life insurance elections. Daniel insisted I keep paper copies. We signed them together. The records were stored in a large blue accordion folder marked Mercer Family Insurance. Not in Daniel's office. In my own closet. He had hidden the truth among documents I controlled because Paul would assume Daniel controlled every secret. We drove home in darkness. At a gas station outside Lancaster, Rachel received a call from the hospital. She stepped away to answer. I remained in the car, holding Daniel's letter. A second page had been folded behind the first. I had not noticed until then. Only one paragraph appeared. "The money is not mine. The award may be." I left it unclaimed because accepting it before restitution felt like profiting from the harm I helped create. That was my choice. Making you and Rachel live by that choice was not justice. It was cowardice disguised as sacrifice. I pressed the paper against my chest. For the first time, Daniel had named the thing correctly. Not protection. Not responsibility. Cowardice. The admission did not heal anything, but it stopped me from having to carry the burden of naming it alone. Chapter 6. What Daniel signed. We reached home shortly before midnight. The broken kitchen window had been covered with plywood. The house smelled faintly of rain and old insulation. I went directly upstairs. The blue insurance folder sat on the top shelf of my bedroom closet beneath 2 blankets. I had handled it dozens of times. Health plans. Dental coverage. Beneficiary forms. Life insurance statements. each year separated by a labeled divider. Rachel spread the contents across the bed. More than 20 signatures, she said. Start with 2001. The insurance election form contained nothing unusual. My signature appeared at the bottom. Daniel's appeared beside it. We checked 2002, then 2003. In the plastic sleeve behind the 2003 form, the backing felt thicker than the others. Rachel slid a fingernail beneath the seam. The plastic had been resealed. Inside was a folded sheet of onion skin paper. The first line read, "Confidential Internal Audit Memorandum. Date, October 28, 2001. Prepared by Daniel R. Mercer, Director of Internal Audit. Distribution, Paul Mercer, Robert Vance. Silver Pines Executive Committee. Outside Counsel." My hands became cold. This was the document listed as destroyed. The original audit memorandum. We did not read it all at once. We read it sentence by sentence. Daniel wrote that the first pension transfer had been presented as a 90-day bridge loan supported by the planned sale of 3 properties. He had objected that retirement reserves should not be used for operating cash. Paul assured him outside counsel had approved the structure. No written opinion was provided. The property sale failed. Despite that failure, Paul ordered a second transfer. Daniel refused initially. Paul warned that 11 facilities would close, residents would be displaced, and 1,300 employees would lose their jobs. Daniel signed. 2 weeks later, Daniel discovered that part of the transferred money had not gone to payroll or facility operations. It had gone into affiliated entities controlled by Paul and Robert Vance. One entity purchased real estate from Silver Pines at a reduced price. Another paid consulting fees to executives. The memorandum stated, "I approved the second transfer under pressure and with knowledge that repayment was uncertain. I did not know at the time that funds would be directed to affiliated entities. However, my failure to demand documentary proof and my decision not to notify trustees immediately contributed directly to the loss." Rachel stopped reading. He admitted it. Yes. The memo continued. Daniel recommended immediate disclosure to the board, notification of federal pension regulators, suspension of Paul and Vance, preservation of all accounting records, restoration of funds from executive assets. A handwritten response appeared at the bottom. Not Daniel's writing. "This memo is inaccurate, inflammatory, and unauthorized. All copies to be returned pending legal review. Initials. PM. Paul." Attached was a second page. A letter from Daniel to Paul. "You asked me to choose between protecting 1,300 current employees and protecting 400 retirees. I accepted the premise that one group had to be sacrificed for the other." That was the first lie. The second was believing we could repair the damage quietly. "I will preserve this record whether you approve or not." Rachel sat beside me in silence. The story was no longer simple. Daniel had not planned the theft. He had not been innocent. He had made a choice under pressure. Then he had discovered the pressure itself was built on deceit. What happened after this? Rachel asked. We searched the folder. Behind my 2004 insurance form was another hidden page. A cooperation agreement reference number. Behind 2005, a sealed court receipt. Behind 2006, a copy of a certified mailing to federal investigators. Daniel had constructed a hidden archive across our marriage. 1 document per year. Always behind a form bearing my signature. I felt violated by the cleverness of it. He had used my habits, my filing, my trust. But he had also ensured I could find it when he could no longer finish. "I don't know whether to hate him or admire him," Rachel said. "You don't have to choose." He helped them recover the money. Yes. He also helped lose it. Yes. He sent checks. Yes. He let us struggle. Yes. Rachel looked at me. How can all of those things be true? Because people are not court verdicts. The answer came before I had time to think. Daniel had spent years trying to reduce himself to one final category. Guilty. Useful. Coward. Witness. Husband. None was enough. I understood now why the truth had taken so long. Not because it was impossible to explain. Because explaining it meant accepting that no single explanation could rescue him. At 1:30 in the morning, I called Martin. He arrived before dawn with a portable scanner and 2 witnesses from his former law firm. Every page was photographed, logged, and sealed. At 6, he called the Federal Recovery Office listed in Daniel's documents. By 8, 3 officials were driving from Columbus. At 9:15, Paul called. I let it ring. He called again. Then Emily. I answered hers. Did you find it? She asked. What makes you think that? My father received a preservation notice from federal counsel 20 minutes ago. Yes. Emily inhaled. Does it name him? Yes. Does it name Daniel? Yes. In what way? I won't summarize it for you. He's my father. And Daniel is my husband. Neither relationship changes the words on the page. Please. The desperation in her voice was real. So was mine. I will tell you this, I said. Daniel admitted his own responsibility before describing Paul's. Emily became silent. He did. Yes. My father always said Daniel tried to make him the sole villain. He didn't. What did he say? That he accepted a false choice and signed a transfer he should have stopped. I heard Emily crying quietly. Not dramatically. A careful, controlled sound. What happens now? She asked. Paul can tell the truth. He won't. Then someone else will tell it for him. After the call, Martin warned me that preserving the memorandum did not automatically release the funds. We still need the beneficiary review, he said. Emily said the list is outdated. She's correct. Can we trust her information? We verify it. What about the claims Paul's companies purchased? Some may be legally enforceable. He should not profit. Morally, I agree. Legally, we need evidence of coercion or undisclosed conflicts. So the memorandum isn't enough. It establishes intent and concealment. It doesn't resolve every later transaction. The first layer problem had been the hidden account. The next was Daniel's responsibility. Now, even with the truth in hand, the money itself remained trapped in a maze built over 20 years. That afternoon, Clara arranged a secure meeting at the bank. Martin, Rachel, and I entered through a side door. Clara placed a thick binder on the conference table. Historical access log, she said. A list of dates and user credentials appeared. Daniel accessed the account regularly. Once or twice a month at first. Then weekly during the final year. A second user began appearing in 2018. Credential name. ImmersorComp. Emily's corporate access. The login after Daniel's stroke used the same credential. Rachel looked at Clara. Can you prove who physically logged in? Not from credentials alone. But the IP address belongs to Mercer Health headquarters. Emily said Paul knew her password, I said. Clara turned the page. Security footage from the company network room had been subpoenaed during an unrelated audit. The image was grainy. A man entered at 9:14 a.m. on the day of Daniel's stroke. Paul. He remained 6 minutes. The account login occurred at 9:17. Daniel was already in the ambulance. Paul had tried to access the money before I even reached the hospital. Why didn't he move it? Rachel asked. The account required Daniel's biometric token for transfers, Clara said. After his medical emergency, the bank automatically elevated restrictions. He knew Daniel might die, or feared he might regain consciousness and revoke something. Clara opened another section. 2 weeks before his stroke, Daniel had submitted an amendment. He removed Paul from all contingency authority. He designated me. The signature was notarized. Beside my name, Daniel had written, "She will not protect me from the truth." I looked away. For years, Daniel had relied on my silence. At the end, he trusted the woman I had not yet become. Or perhaps he was forcing me to become her. "Can the account be released now?" I asked. "No," Clara said. "Why?" "Because the beneficiary list must be corrected, and the court must rule on acquired claims." "How long?" "Months, possibly longer. Those people have already waited 20 years. "I know. There must be another way." Clara hesitated. "There is an expedited restitution procedure." "What does it require?" "A neutral administrator, verified claims review, and waiver of competing estate control." "Meaning I give up authority." "You give up the ability to direct funds personally. You retain the right to confirm the final list and challenge conflicted claims." "What happens to Daniel's award?" "That remains separate." "How much is it now?" "With accrued interest, approximately $6,200,000. Rachel looked at me. $6 million. Not 55. Still more money than I could imagine. "Does accepting it reduce anyone's pension?" I asked. "No. It comes from a statutory recovery allocation." "Can Paul challenge it?" "Yes." "Will he?" "Almost certainly." Martin leaned toward me. "You do not need to decide today." But I did. "Not about the award. About the 55 million. I'll sign the expedited waiver." Rachel touched my arm. "Mom, wait. I'm not giving away our money. You don't know that. It was never ours. Dad made you the confirming party. To finish the process, not inherit the account. You've spent your whole life letting him decide. This is my decision." Her hand fell away. I understood her fear. She had watched me sacrifice too easily. She thought sacrifice itself was the danger. But this was different. For the first time, I was not giving something up because Daniel, Paul, or fear told me to. I was choosing what I refused to take. Clara brought the waiver. Before I signed, Martin read every paragraph aloud. The account would remain dedicated to verified beneficiaries. I would retain oversight rights. No funds could be directed to Mercer Health, Northline Trust, or affiliated claim purchasers without independent review. I signed. The moment the pen left the paper, my phone rang. "Paul." This time I answered. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I signed the expedited restitution waiver." "You had no authority to do that. The court says otherwise. You've just surrendered leverage worth millions." "It was never leverage." "You think those employees will thank you?" "Half of them sold their claims. The rest will fight over heirs for years. Then we'll verify them." "You have no idea how complicated this is." "I'm learning." "Helen, listen to me. Daniel was not a hero." "I know. He signed the transfers." "I know. He delayed reporting." "I know. He lied to you." "I know." Paul became quiet. The old version of me would have searched his silence for instruction. This time, I let it belong to him. "What do you want?" he asked. "The full records of every pension claim purchased by a company connected to you." "You're insane." "Then court should be interesting." "You will destroy Emily." "No. You used her credentials. You asked her to certify incomplete records. You tried to make her carry a risk. That is not what happened. She already knows enough to question you." His voice dropped. "You brought my daughter into this. You brought all our daughters into it 24 years ago." He ended the call. 10 minutes later, Emily sent Rachel a message. "My father has ordered deletion of archived claim purchase correspondence." I refused. Security is escorting me out. The conflict had finally reached Paul's own house. And he was still choosing concealment. The same choice Daniel had made at the beginning. The difference was that Daniel eventually turned back. I did not yet know whether Paul would. Chapter 7. The Offer. Emily spent the night at our house. She arrived shortly after 7, carrying one suitcase, a laptop, and a cardboard box filled with files she had been allowed to remove from her office. Paul had disabled her company email before she reached the parking lot. He also canceled her corporate phone and sent a written notice placing her on administrative leave for failure to comply with records governance procedures. In ordinary language, that meant she had refused to help him erase evidence. Rachel opened the front door before Emily knocked. Neither woman spoke for several seconds. Then Rachel took the suitcase. "You can use the guest room." Emily looked surprised. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. I still don't trust you." "That seems fair." It was the first honest exchange the two of them had ever shared. I warmed soup while Emily arranged the files across the dining table. Most concerned pension claims purchased between 2008 and 2019. The transactions followed a pattern. Former Silver Pines employees received letters offering immediate cash in exchange for future recovery rights. A claim worth $100,000 might be purchased for $12,000. A widow facing foreclosure might accept $8,000 for a claim later valued at $75,000. The contracts used legal language most retirees would never understand. Some contained disclosures. Others did not. Several buyers were companies with different names, but the same mailing address. That address belonged to a building owned by Mercer Health. "Did your father personally approve these?" Martin asked through a video call. Emily looked through the records. "Not all. But senior management reports went to him." "Did he disclose the connection between Mercer Health and the purchasing entities?" "Not in the contracts I've seen." "Then we may have self-dealing and fraudulent concealment." Emily closed her eyes. Each legal phrase seemed to remove another piece of the father she thought she knew. Rachel noticed. "You can stop," she said. Emily opened her eyes. "No. You don't have to prove anything to us." "I'm not proving it to you." "Then why keep reading?" Emily looked toward the dark window. "Because my entire career has been built on telling other people to follow rules my father treated as optional." No one answered. She continued sorting. At 10:30, she found a spreadsheet titled Legacy Claim Recovery Projection. The first column listed purchase prices. The second listed estimated eventual payout. The third showed expected profit. At the bottom, a bold number appeared. Projected net gain, $11,740,000. Paul's initials appeared in the approval field. Emily pushed her chair back. He knew. The words were barely audible. I placed one hand on her shoulder. She did not pull away. He knew exactly how much he expected to make. Rachel stared at the spreadsheet. "Can we give this to the court?" "We can," Martin said, "but first we need to authenticate it." I downloaded it from the company archive. That establishes custody, but not necessarily completeness. It has a digital signature. Good. Preserve the original file and metadata. Emily looked toward me. "My father will say I stole privileged documents." "Did you?" "I accessed them while I was still compliance counsel." "Then let him say it in court." Her expression tightened. "You make that sound easy." "It isn't." "Then why aren't you afraid?" I thought about the broken window, the court petition, the account, the memorandum hidden behind forms I had signed without understanding. "I am afraid," I said. "I'm just tired of letting fear make the decision before I do." Rachel looked at me with quiet surprise. That sentence belonged to a woman neither of us had known 2 weeks earlier. At 11:15, the doorbell rang. We all froze. The porch camera had been replaced that afternoon. On the screen beside the door, Paul stood alone. No folder. No attorneys. No coat, despite the cold. Emily stood. "I'm not speaking to him." "You don't have to," I said. Rachel moved between her and the hallway. "I'll stay with her." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. Paul looked older than he had in court. The control was still there, but strain had settled into the lines around his mouth. Where is Emily? Safe. She belongs at home. She is 31 years old. She is upset. She was fired. She was suspended. Because she refused to delete records. I never asked her to delete anything. She received the instruction in writing. From records management. At your direction. He looked past me toward the front window. Let me talk to her. No. Helen. No. His eyes returned to mine. You have always been reasonable. The word used to sound like praise. Now I heard the meaning beneath it. Compliant. Quiet. Easy to manage. I signed the waiver, I said. The account is protected. You protected it from me. I protected it from anyone who considers retirees a business opportunity. His jaw tightened. Emily showed you confidential materials. She showed me enough. Those claim purchases were legal. Then you should have no problem producing every contract. You have no idea what happens if the sale collapses. Tell me. 400 current employees could lose their jobs. There it was again. The same argument he had given Daniel. Protect the present by sacrificing people who had already been harmed. What company is buying Mercer Health? I asked. That is confidential. Does the buyer know about Silver Pines? They know there are historical claims. Do they know your related companies expect to collect nearly $12 million? He stared at me. The silence answered. You didn't tell them, I said. The projections are theoretical. The profits are real enough for you to fight your own daughter. His face changed. Do not speak to me about my daughter. Then stop using her as a shield. You think this is simple because Daniel left you a confession and a pile of paper. It is not simple. Silver Pines was weeks from collapse. Residents would have been displaced. Employees would have lost insurance. Vendors would have failed. Your husband understood that. He also understood he was wrong. Years later. Yes. After I spent every day cleaning up the damage while he hid behind a cooperation agreement. Cleaning it up? I kept facilities open. I built a new company. I paid settlements. I employed people. And bought claims from desperate retirees. I gave them immediate money when no one else would. For a fraction of their value. They chose. Did they know you were connected to the company that caused the loss? Paul looked away. That relationship was disclosed where required. Not everywhere. You've been talking to Emily. I've been reading. His frustration broke through. You don't understand financial distress. You don't understand what it means to choose which obligations get paid when there is not enough money. No. I understand something else. What? I understand what it means to be the person someone else chooses to leave without enough. That stopped him. For 23 years, Daniel and Paul had treated money as an executive question. A problem managed behind closed doors. But every decision eventually arrived in someone's kitchen. In unpaid tuition. In postponed medicine. In a coat returned at the register. Paul reached into his pocket and removed an envelope. I came to make you an offer. I'm not signing anything. Read it first. No. Helen, this is not the same document. He held the envelope out. I did not take it. What are you offering? $3 million to Daniel's estate. I almost laughed. He continued. Your mortgage paid in full. Rachel's student loans cleared. Legal fees covered. An additional $2 million placed in a charitable fund for former Silver Pines employees. In exchange for what? You withdraw opposition to the institutional trustee. Northline. A different firm. Chosen by you. Approved by the court. And the memorandum? Filed under seal. Meaning the public never learns what happened. The beneficiaries get paid. Your companies still collect on purchased claims? Valid claims, yes. You keep the sale. Yes. And Emily? She returns to work with no professional consequences. There it was. The offer was not foolish. That made it dangerous. My house, Rachel's debt, Emily's future, money for some victims. A path that looked like peace. For a moment, I imagined saying yes. I imagined waking without attorneys calling, without reporters, without fearing another stone through the window. $3 million would change my life. It would change Rachel's. Paul watched my face. He knew exactly what the offer was designed to touch. You can help the people who are still alive, he said. Or you can drag this out for years to punish me. This is not about punishing you. Then prove it. How? Choose a solution instead of a spectacle. The old instinct returned. Avoid the fight. Take what is offered. Tell yourself no outcome is perfect. I had lived that way for decades. Sometimes compromise is wisdom. Sometimes it is simply fear wearing a respectable coat. I need 24 hours, I said. Paul's shoulders loosened. He thought I was considering surrender. Of course. Send the full terms in writing. I brought them. Not a summary. Every condition. Every company involved. Every claim purchaser protected by the agreement. His eyes narrowed. Why? Because I don't sign things I don't understand anymore. He handed me the envelope. I'll expect your answer tomorrow evening. As he walked toward his car, I called after him. Paul. He turned. Did you know Daniel kept the original memorandum? No. The answer was immediate. Too immediate. Did you send someone to break my window? No. Did you access the account after his stroke? His expression went still. That allegation is based on incomplete technical evidence. That is not an answer. I was trying to protect company assets. Daniel was still alive. He was unconscious. He was alive. Paul looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, you should take the offer. He drove away. Inside, Rachel and Emily waited in the hallway. You're not seriously considering it, Rachel said. I asked for the full agreement. That sounds like considering it. I want him to put everything he wants protected in writing. Emily understood first. You think the exceptions will identify the affiliated companies? Yes, if he lists them. He has to if he wants the agreement to protect them. Rachel's anger faded. You were baiting him. I was listening. Martin arrived early the next morning. We reviewed Paul's offer line by line. The agreement named 6 corporate entities whose acquired claims would remain valid. 3 were already known. 3 were not. 1 had purchased claims from more than 40 surviving spouses. Another was registered to Robert Vance's son. The 3rd had received transfers from a Mercer Health account less than 1 month before each purchase campaign. Paul's attempt to settle had given us the missing map. Martin looked almost pleased. He has connected the entities for us. Is the offer itself an admission? Rachel asked. Not directly. But the list helps prove common control, Emily said. Yes. What do we do now? I asked. Martin folded his glasses. We verify the contracts, notify the court, and ask for an injunction preventing payment to conflicted claim buyers. And Paul? He will realize what happened. When? Soon. My phone rang before Martin finished speaking. Paul. I answered. His voice was no longer controlled. You had no right to share that proposal. I shared it with my attorney. You used settlement communication to build a case. I read the companies you asked me to protect. You're making a mistake. No. I made my mistake 24 years ago. He became silent. You, he said. Yes. Daniel asked me whether someone should admit a work mistake even if the truth caused more damage. I told him it might be better to fix it quietly first. You think this is your fault? No. But I understand now how people like you survive. You make everyone feel responsible for the consequences of telling the truth. You have until tonight. For what? To accept the offer. The answer is no. You haven't thought about Rachel. I have. Her loans. She is not for sale. And Emily? Neither is she. Paul's voice became very quiet. Then whatever happens to them is on you. No, I said. That is the first lie Daniel finally stopped believing. I ended the call. 10 minutes later, Mercer Health issued a public statement accusing Emily of stealing confidential records and me of attempting to interfere with a lawful corporate transaction. By noon, reporters were outside the house. By afternoon, social media had turned me into two different women. To some, I was the brave widow exposing a pension scandal. To others, I was a greedy wife using old documents to seize money. One television commentator asked why a woman with access to $55 million still lived in an ordinary house. As if walls could testify. As if poverty and wealth were always visible. That evening, Rachel found a video of Paul leaving his office. A reporter asked whether he had anything to say to former Silver Pines employees. Paul stopped beside his car. My brother made serious mistakes, he said. His widow is now trying to rewrite history for financial gain. I watched the clip twice. Daniel's name had become Paul's final defense. Blame the dead man. Discredit the widow. Protect the structure. Rachel switched off the television. Are you okay? No. Do you regret refusing? I considered the question honestly. I regret that refusing does not make any of this easier. That isn't the same thing. No. The doorbell rang. A courier handed me a certified envelope from the court. Paul had filed an emergency motion. He claimed I was mentally unfit to serve as confirming party because grief had impaired my judgment. Attached were statements from two people who had known me for years. One was Daniel's former physician. The other was my sister, Linda. Paul was no longer only attacking the evidence. He was attacking my ability to speak. Chapter 8. The woman they thought I was. Linda lived in Indianapolis. We had not spoken since Daniel's funeral. Not because of an argument. Because distance had become our normal condition. She was 4 years older and had always treated caution as intelligence. When we were children, she hid birthday money inside books. I spent mine on gifts. When I married Daniel, she said he was too private. When I defended him, she stopped saying it. Her statement to the court was only 3 paragraphs. She described me as emotionally dependent on Daniel. She said I avoided difficult decisions. She said I had called her after the funeral and admitted I did not know how to manage finances alone. All of it was true. None of it proved I was incompetent. That was what made it effective. Paul had not invented a false version of me. He had selected an old one. I called Linda. She answered immediately. Helen, you signed a statement for Paul. Silence. I thought it was for the estate, she said. It says I'm not capable of making financial decisions. That is not how he explained it. Did you read it? He sent a summary. Did you read what you signed? Another silence. The irony would have been funny under different circumstances. For years, I had signed forms because Daniel said they were routine. Now Linda had done the same to me. What did Paul tell you? I asked. That you found some restricted money and Rachel was pushing you to fight for it. He said Rachel was manipulating me. He said she was under financial pressure. She has student loans. I know. He offered to pay them if I stayed quiet. Linda inhaled. I didn't know that. You didn't ask. The accusation sounded familiar because Rachel had used it against me. I finally understood how it felt from the other side. I was worried about you, Linda said. You were worried enough to let a man I barely trust tell a court who I am. I'm sorry. I need you to withdraw the statement. Of course. And I need you to tell the court exactly how Paul obtained it. Helen, I don't want to be involved. You already are. I have grandchildren. I don't need reporters calling. Neither do the retirees who lost their pensions. That is not my responsibility. No. But your signature is. She began crying softly. A month earlier, I would have comforted her and released her from the problem. Instead, I waited. "I'll call a lawyer," she said. "Call Martin. He'll prepare a correction." "You sound different." "I am different." After the call, Rachel stood in the doorway. "You handled that well." It didn't feel good. Doing the right thing usually feels terrible in this family. The physician's statement was more serious. Dr. Howard Blake had treated Daniel for high blood pressure and me for anxiety after his death. He claimed I displayed confusion, sleep disturbance, and obsessive thinking. Again, all partly true. Grief had disrupted my sleep. I had repeated details because I feared forgetting them. But Dr. Blake had never performed a competency evaluation. Martin requested his records. What we found shifted the case again. Daniel had visited Dr. Blake 6 days before his stroke. The appointment notes listed dizziness, headaches, and concern about possible exposure of historical financial matters. The doctor recommended hospitalization for elevated blood pressure. Daniel refused. A second note appeared outside the ordinary medical record. Patient requested confirmation that spouse may experience emotional instability if informed of ongoing investigation. I read the sentence twice. Daniel told him I might become unstable? Martin shook his head. The wording says the patient requested confirmation. It doesn't say Dr. Blake agreed. Why would Daniel ask? Rachel looked angry. Maybe Dad planned to use the same argument Paul is using. No, Martin said. Look at the date. 6 days before the stroke. 2 days before Daniel recorded the confession. The following morning, Dr. Blake faxed a letter to Paul. We did not yet have the letter, but the transmission appeared in the phone log. Paul contacted him after Daniel's appointment, Martin said. Or before, Emily added. She was reviewing the records with us. What are you thinking? I asked. Dad may have known Daniel was preparing to disclose everything. He could have encouraged Daniel to characterize you as emotionally fragile. To stop him from telling me? Or to create a later challenge to your authority. Rachel stood. He was building a case against Mom before Dad died. Emily's face tightened. I said, May, stop protecting the wording. I'm not protecting him. I'm refusing to claim what we can't prove. The two women stared at each other. Then Rachel nodded. Fine. What can we prove? We can prove Dr. Blake communicated with my father after Daniel discussed historical financial exposure. Martin requested an emergency deposition. Dr. Blake's attorney resisted. The judge ordered him to appear the next afternoon. Before the deposition, I sat in Martin's conference room and read Daniel's medical notes again. Emotional instability. The phrase felt like a hand placed over my mouth. I thought back through the years. Every time Daniel said I was making myself upset. Every time Paul called me emotional. Every time I accepted that calmness belonged to men and reaction belonged to women. My supposed weakness had always been useful to someone. At 3, Dr. Blake entered with his lawyer. He was 67, silver-haired, and visibly uncomfortable. Martin began with routine questions. How long had he treated Daniel? 11 years. Did Daniel have cognitive impairment? No. Was he capable of making legal decisions? Yes. Did Daniel mention the Silver Pines matter? Only generally. Did Daniel ask him to assess my mental condition? Dr. Blake hesitated. He expressed concern about how disclosure might affect her. Did you examine Mrs. Mercer at that time? No. Did you advise Daniel that she was incapable of handling financial information? No. Then why did you sign an affidavit suggesting she is now incompetent? I did not use that word. You described confusion, anxiety, sleep disturbance, and obsessive focus. Those symptoms can affect judgment. Can they also be normal symptoms of grief? Yes. Did you perform a formal capacity evaluation? No. Did Paul Mercer ask you to? He asked for my clinical impressions. When did he first contact you concerning Mrs. Mercer? Dr. Blake looked at his attorney. The attorney nodded. 6 days before Daniel's stroke. The room became still. What did Paul ask? Martin said. He said Daniel was under stress and considering a disclosure that might overwhelm his wife. Did he ask you to document concerns about her? He asked whether emotional vulnerability could justify delaying disclosure. What did you say? That family communication was not a medical decision. Why did you fax him a letter? Dr. Blake's face reddened. He requested confirmation that Daniel had been advised to reduce stress and avoid destabilizing conversations. Did you provide that? Yes. Was that medically necessary? It was consistent with Daniel's blood pressure risk. For Daniel's health? Yes. Not Mrs. Mercer's competence? No. Martin placed Paul's court filing in front of him. Yet your recent affidavit was used to challenge Mrs. Mercer's competence. That was not my intention. Did Paul draft the affidavit? His attorney did. Did you read it? Dr. Blake looked down. Yes. Carefully. No answer came. Martin allowed the silence to continue. Finally, Dr. Blake said, not carefully enough. The pattern repeated again. Men signed. Women paid. After the deposition, Dr. Blake asked to speak with me privately. I refused. He apologized anyway. I thought I was helping protect you from a public scandal. You thought I could not decide what I was willing to face. Yes. At least you're honest now. He looked ashamed. That did not make him harmless. The court denied Paul's motion to remove me. Judge Collins wrote that grief, anxiety, and emotional distress did not establish incapacity, especially where the evidence showed I had retained counsel, preserved documents, declined personal access to disputed funds, and requested independent administration. The ruling became public by evening. Reporters changed their language. I was no longer the confused widow. I was the woman who had defeated an attempt to silence her. The attention embarrassed me. I had not become fearless. I had merely documented my decisions. But public stories prefer sudden transformation. They want a timid woman to become strong in one dramatic moment. Real change is less graceful. It happens while your hands shake. It happens when you say no and then spend the night wondering whether yes would have been easier. It happens when the old version of you is still alive, still whispering, still asking everyone not to be angry. That night, Clara called. The neutral administrator has completed preliminary review of the beneficiary list. How many claims are valid? 368 direct or successor claims are verified. And the purchase claims? 59 require conflict review. How soon can uncontested payments begin? If the judge approves bifurcation, perhaps within weeks. What is bifurcation? Releasing uncontested funds while disputed claims remain frozen. Ask for it. Your attorney already has. I smiled faintly. Martin was learning that I no longer needed every step explained before he acted in line with my stated goal. There's another issue, Clara said. What? Someone submitted a competing instruction signed by Daniel. My stomach tightened. What instruction? A document directing that all recovery funds be transferred to a corporate settlement trustee after his death. Northline. No. Mercer Resolution Partners. I had seen that name in Paul's offer. Is the signature real? Initial examination suggests it may be. When was it signed? 3 years ago. Before Daniel removed Paul from authority. Yes. Then the newer amendment should control. Normally. What's different? The competing document contains a clause making the appointment irrevocable. Can Daniel do that? That is disputed. Who submitted it? Robert Vance's attorney. The third man in the photograph. The benefits administrator who had gone to prison in another fraud case. Why no? Because Mr. Vance has requested a meeting. With whom? You. I stood from the kitchen table. Why? He says Daniel gave him something 20 years ago. What? He will only describe it in your presence. Where is he? Federal Medical Center in Kentucky. Is he dying? Clara paused. Yes. Another man had waited until the edge of death to speak. I felt no sympathy for the timing. When? Tomorrow, if you agree. I agree. Rachel, who had heard my side of the call, shook her head. You're not going alone. I won't. Paul will know. Probably. What if this is a trap? Then we go prepared. She looked at me for a long moment. You really have changed. No, I said. I've stopped pretending that the part of me I buried was never there. Chapter 9. The Third Signature. The Federal Medical Center sat behind layers of fencing and concrete. Martin traveled with me. Rachel wanted to come, but visitor restrictions allowed only 2 people, and Martin's presence protected the conversation. Robert Vance entered the visitation room in a wheelchair. He looked older than 78. His skin was gray, his wrists thin beneath the cuffs of a prison-issued shirt. An oxygen tube rested beneath his nose. This man had once helped control millions of dollars in employee retirement funds. Now a guard had to move his chair close to the table. Vance looked at me for several seconds. You have Daniel's eyes around the mouth, he said. That doesn't make sense. He pressed his lips together the same way when he didn't trust someone. I don't trust you. Then perhaps it does make sense. Martin placed a recorder on the table and obtained consent. Vance's attorney sat in the corner. Why did you ask for Mrs. Mercer? Martin said. Vance ignored him. Did Daniel leave the memorandum? Yes. Vance closed his eyes. For a moment, I thought he had fallen asleep. Then he said, Good. You signed the transfers, I said. Yes. You helped move the pension money. Yes. Did you steal it? He opened his eyes. Some. The bluntness was almost obscene. How much? Directly? Less than Paul believes. More than Daniel wanted to believe. That is not a number. $2.6 million in fees, property interests, and side agreements. I lost most of it later. People lost homes. I know. People died waiting. I know. You say that as if knowing his value. It has none. For the first time, I understood that confession did not always bring relief. Sometimes it was only another burden transferred to the listener. What did Daniel give you? I asked. Vance nodded toward his attorney. The attorney removed a sealed plastic evidence pouch. Inside was a small cassette tape. Daniel recorded a meeting on November 2nd, 2001, Vance said. With whom? Paul and me. Was he part of it? He was in the room. What did you discuss? Destroying the audit memorandum. Martin leaned forward. Why was this recording not previously disclosed? Because I kept it as insurance. Against whom? Both brothers. I looked at him. Daniel knew you had it? Yes. Why didn't he take it? He tried. What did you want? Immunity. Did he agree? He couldn't. So you kept it for 24 years. I used portions to negotiate in my other case. Did Paul know? He suspected. Why submit the competing trustee instruction now? Vance smiled weakly. Because Paul promised my son protection. What kind? Mercer Resolution Partners holds claims connected to my family. If the trustee controls distribution, those claims are paid. You are still trying to profit. My son did not commit my crimes. Neither did the retiree's children. Vance's smile disappeared. Daniel would say the same thing. Then why give me the tape? Because Paul stopped paying my lawyer. The room became silent. There was no redemption in the answer. No final moral awakening. Only self-interest shifting direction. That was more believable. What is on the recording? I asked. You should hear it. The medical center no longer had equipment to play cassettes, but the attorney brought a portable recorder approved by security. He inserted the tape. Static filled the room. Then Paul's younger voice emerged. This document does not leave the building. Daniel answered. It already has. Where? Outside counsel. A third voice. Vance laughed. Which counsel? The one we pay. Daniel said, Federal Pension Council. There was a sharp sound, perhaps a chair moving. Paul's voice changed. You contacted the government? I requested guidance. You had no authority. I did not disclose client names. You disclosed enough. Vance spoke. Let's stop acting shocked. Daniel wants protection. I want the funds restored, Daniel said. Paul replied, the property sale closes in January. It may not. It will. And if it doesn't? We refinance. With what collateral? Silence. Daniel continued. The affiliate purchases were not authorized. Paul said, they stabilized the facilities. They transferred value to entities you control. I control them because the lenders required separation. That is not what the records show. Vance interrupted. Daniel, decide what you want. If you submit the memo, every facility goes into receivership. Residents get moved. Employees lose jobs. Your brother goes to prison. You may go with him. Daniel's voice became quieter. And if I destroy it? We replace the funds. Paul added, you protect 1,300 employees. What about the retirees? We make them whole later. The tape hissed. Then Daniel said the sentence that changed the room. I already told them to wait. Paul answered, then tell them again. Daniel's voice cracked. No. A long silence followed. Vance said you signed. I know. You approved the transfer. I know. You are not standing outside this. I know. Paul spoke next. Helen knows nothing. Rachel is a child. You can still protect them. Daniel replied, by teaching them to live inside my lie? You're being dramatic. No. I'm being late. The recording continued for another 12 minutes. Paul offered repayment plans. Vance suggested altering dates. Daniel refused to surrender the memorandum. Paul threatened to report him as the sole architect of the transfers. Then came the final exchange. Paul said, if you do this, I will make sure Helen thinks you stole every dollar. Daniel answered, she may. You can live with that? No. Then destroy it. Daniel's response was barely audible. I can't live with the other thing anymore. The tape ended. I sat without moving. For years, I had imagined Daniel's silence as a wall between us. Now I saw that Paul had helped build it. But Daniel had chosen to live behind it. The tape explained his fear. It did not excuse 23 years. Martin asked Vance about the allegedly irrevocable trustee appointment. Vance admitted the document had been prepared by Paul's lawyers. Did Daniel understand it was irrevocable? Martin asked. He was told it preserved recovered assets. Did he sign willingly? He signed because Paul agreed to begin restoring funds. Did Paul do so? Some. How much? Enough to keep Daniel cooperating. Was the document later revoked? Daniel believed it was. Legally? Vance shrugged weakly. That depends which lawyer is paid to explain it. Before the meeting ended, I asked the question that mattered most to me. Why didn't Daniel tell me? Vance looked almost amused. Because you were the one person whose opinion he could not survive losing. That sounds romantic. It wasn't. No. It was pride. Yes. And shame. Yes. And control. Vance studied me. You know that now. I do. He talked about you constantly. That doesn't help. I didn't say it should. Outside the facility, I stood in the cold parking lot while Martin called the court. The tape would be authenticated. The competing trustee document would be challenged as revoked and fraudulently induced. Paul's role was no longer based only on old papers. His own voice existed. Martin ended the call. This could resolve control of the account. Could. Paul will argue the recording was illegal. Was it? Ohio permits one-party consent if Daniel recorded a conversation he participated in. So it is admissible. Likely. What about Vance? His credibility is poor. The tape speaks for itself. Yes. I looked back at the concrete building. Why does truth always arrive through flawed people? Martin put his phone away. Because those are the only kind available. On the drive home, Rachel called. Her voice was strained. Mom, where are you? Leaving Kentucky. You need to come to the hospital. My heart stopped. What happened? Emily collapsed. Is she conscious? Yes. What happened? Panic attack, maybe. They're still checking. Why? Rachel paused. Paul called her. What did he say? He told her that her mother died because of Daniel. Emily's mother, Susan, had died in a car accident when Emily was 16. The family always said she lost control on an icy road. What does Daniel have to do with it? I don't know. Emily says Paul told her Daniel was responsible for the trip she took that night. The case had reached beyond money, beyond pensions, into another death. By the time we arrived at the hospital, Emily was sitting upright in bed. Her blood tests and heart tracing were normal. Rachel stood beside her. Emily's hands still trembled. What exactly did Paul say? I asked. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. He said Uncle Daniel asked my mother to carry records to a federal investigator in Columbus. When? The night she died. The room became cold. Why would Daniel ask her? She worked in executive administration. She had access to legal mail. Did she know what she was carrying? My father says no. What happened to the records? They were never found. The original accident report had blamed ice and excessive speed. But if Susan carried Silver Pine's evidence, the meaning changed. Is Paul accusing Daniel of causing the accident? Rachel asked. He said Daniel used her because he was too afraid to carry the documents himself. Emily began crying again. He said Uncle Daniel's cowardice killed her. I sat beside her. What do you remember from that night? I remember them arguing. Your parents? Yes. My mother said she was tired of helping him hide things. Helping whom? I always thought she meant Dad. That detail mattered. What did Paul say? He told her she didn't understand what was at stake. The same language. The same pressure. Did Daniel come to the house? No. But he called. Did you hear the conversation? Only my mother saying, I'll deliver it, but after tonight I'm done. Did she say Daniel's name? No. Paul had given Emily one interpretation. It might be true. It might be another carefully selected piece. Martin requested the old crash report. Clara searched Daniel's recovered files for Susan Mercer. That evening, she found her name. Not on the pension list. On the confidential cooperation ledger. S. Mercer, document courier. Confirmed November 14, 01. The date of her death. Beside the entry, Daniel had written, package not received. Paul says destroyed in crash. Paul knew Susan carried documents. He had always known. The question was whether Daniel sent her. Or Paul did. At 11 that night, the forensic audio specialist called. He had recovered additional data from Daniel's final recording. Not all of it, but enough. Rachel, Emily, Martin, and I gathered around the kitchen table. The restored file began where the earlier one ended. Helen, before you forgive me, you need to know what I did. Static crackled. Then Daniel continued. I signed the second transfer after I knew repayment was unlikely. Paul threatened closures, but no threat put my name on that page. I did. His breathing sounded labored. I waited 17 days before contacting federal counsel. In those 17 days, Susan tried to carry copies out. Emily covered her mouth. Daniel's voice continued. I asked her to take them. Emily made a small, broken sound. I told myself she was less likely to be watched. I told myself it was safer than going myself. She died on the way. The room remained completely still. I have lived with the possibility that my fear placed her on that road. Paul says the crash was an accident. I do not know whether to believe him. The audio distorted, then returned. If Emily ever hears this, tell her I am sorry. Not the kind of apology that asks to be forgiven. The kind that accepts she may hate me. Emily stood and left the room. Rachel followed her. I remained beside the speaker. Daniel continued. The $55 million belongs to the employees and their families. The federal award is separate. Helen, you may accept it. You should accept it. I had no right to make poverty part of your punishment. My eyes filled. I called my silence protection because I could not bear to call it control. I let you defend me without giving you the facts. I made your trust into evidence against your own judgment. The words struck more deeply than any declaration of love could have. I do not ask you to protect my name. Tell them what I did before you tell them what I repaired. Then came the final sentence. You deserved the truth while I was alive. The recording ended. No music. No final goodbye. Only the sound of an empty room after a dead man had finally stopped arranging the story. The next morning, the state police reopened the review of Susan's crash. Not because the recording proved foul play. Because it established that she had been carrying sensitive financial documents and that Paul may have known. Paul issued another statement. He called Daniel's recording the confused confession of a guilty man trying to implicate others after death. Then Emily did something none of us expected. She scheduled a press conference. Not with us. Not through Martin. Alone. She stood outside the courthouse wearing a plain black coat. Cameras surrounded her. My father has suggested that Helen Mercer and Rachel Mercer manipulated me into providing company records, she said. That is false. Paul's attorneys arrived at the edge of the crowd. Emily continued. I accessed those records in my role as compliance counsel. They show that companies connected to Mercer Health purchased pension claims without full disclosure of related party interests. A reporter shouted a question about her mother. Emily's voice faltered, then steadied. I have also learned that my mother transported Silver Pines records on the night of her death. I do not yet know whether her crash was accidental. I do know that both my father and my uncle made decisions that placed other people at risk while claiming to protect their families. She looked directly into the cameras. I will cooperate with the court and investigators. I will not destroy evidence. I will not certify incomplete records. And I will not allow my father to use my mother's death to silence me. Behind her, Paul stopped walking. For the first time, his daughter had chosen truth over him in public. His face did not show rage. It showed loss. A real loss. One he had created himself. That afternoon, Judge Collins advanced the evidentiary hearing. Paul had 3 days to produce all records related to pension transfers, claim purchase entities, the trustee appointment, Daniel's access, Susan's courier role, and any communication concerning document destruction. If he failed, the court could impose sanctions and refer the matter for criminal investigation. The account remained frozen. But uncontested beneficiaries were one step closer to payment. The truth was finally moving faster than Paul could contain it. And that made him more dangerous than before. Chapter 10. The night Susan died. The reopened crash review began with weather records. There had been ice that night, but not where Susan's car left the road. The official report described freezing rain across Montgomery County. Yet the section of highway where she crashed had been dry for nearly 2 hours. The original investigating officer had retired, but he still lived outside Dayton. Detective Lena Ortiz, assigned to the new review, interviewed him first. Then she asked to meet Emily. We gathered in Martin's office the following afternoon. Detective Ortiz was in her early 40s, compact and direct. She placed a copy of the 2001 crash diagram on the table. Susan Mercer was traveling east toward Columbus, she said. Her vehicle crossed the center line, struck a guardrail, and rolled down an embankment. Was she speeding? Emily asked. The report estimated 10 to 15 miles over the limit. My mother never sped. That statement appears in 3 witness interviews. Then why did the report say she did? Based on skid marks. Ortiz placed a new photograph beside the diagram. The image showed 2 sets of tire marks. The original investigator assumed both came from Susan's vehicle. Modern review suggests the shorter marks may belong to another car. Emily's face became pale. Someone was beside her? Possibly behind her. Possibly attempting to pass. Was another vehicle reported? No. Can you prove there was one? Not yet. Martin asked, what about the missing package? The tow inventory listed a leather satchel. Emily looked up sharply. My mother carried a brown satchel to work. The satchel was logged at the scene but not included in property returned to the family. Where did it go? That is one reason the case is reopened. Ortiz turned another page. The tow operator had signed the inventory. A Silver Pines corporate security employee had signed the release. Name: Thomas Keene. Emily stared at it. I know him. Who is he? I asked. He ran security for my father's company until 5 years ago. Was he at Silver Pines in 2001? Ortiz asked. Yes. Did he have authority to collect Susan's property? I don't know. Ortiz already knew the answer. He did not. The room became silent. Where is he now? Martin asked. Florida. Have you spoken to him? He has retained counsel. Emily pressed both palms against the table. My father sent him. Ortiz remained careful. We have not established that. Thomas Keene would not collect my mother's belongings without Dad's approval. Did your father tell you the satchel was destroyed in the crash? Yes. It was intact when police inventoried it. Emily closed her eyes. For 24 years, Paul had told his daughter that fire and impact had destroyed whatever Susan carried. Now we knew the satchel had survived. The records had been removed afterward. Did Keene sign for anything else? I asked. Personal effects, including a purse, watch, and briefcase. The purse and watch were returned. The briefcase was not. Satchel or briefcase? The terms were used interchangeably. What about Daniel? Emily asked. Did he know? We found a letter he sent to the state police 6 months after the crash asking whether a document case had been recovered. What response did he receive? The file contains no answer. He investigated. Quietly, Ortiz said. The word carried its own accusation. Daniel had contacted federal officials. He had preserved documents. He had sent money. But everything he did was quiet. Always quiet enough to leave the people closest to the harm without answers. Ortiz looked at me. Mrs. Mercer, did Daniel ever mention Thomas Keene? No. Did Paul? No. Did Daniel own a tape recorder? Yes. What kind? A small handheld cassette recorder. He used it for notes. Do you still have it? I haven't seen it in years. We recovered one from Robert Vance's attorney. There may have been additional tapes. How many secrets can one man leave behind? Rachel asked. Ortiz did not answer. After the detective left, Emily remained in her chair. I blamed Uncle Daniel before I even heard the recording, she said. He did send her, Rachel replied. I know. He admitted it. I know. But that doesn't mean he caused the crash. It means he put her on the road. Yes. Emily looked at me. How do you live with both things? I don't know yet. That was the most honest answer I had. I could say Daniel did not drive the other car. I could say Susan chose to carry the records. I could say Paul created the danger. But Daniel had chosen someone else to carry a risk he was afraid to carry himself. His confession did not remove the consequence. It only prevented the consequence from being hidden. The evidentiary hearing began the next morning. Judge Collins permitted the cassette recording, subject to authentication. A forensic analyst testified that the tape was continuous and showed no signs of editing. Paul's attorney argued Robert Vance had preserved it for extortion and could not be trusted. Judge Collins replied, "Mr. Vance's motive affects his credibility. It does not alter the voices on the recording." Paul sat at counsel table with both hands folded. For the first time, he looked directly at me while Daniel's voice played in court. The room heard him say, "You asked me to choose between protecting 1,300 current employees and protecting 400 retirees. I accepted the premise that one group had to be sacrificed for the other." That was the first lie. Former employees sat behind us. Some cried. Others showed no expression at all. When Paul's younger voice promised to restore the funds later, a man in the second row whispered, "You never did." The judge warned the gallery to remain silent. The tape continued. Paul threatened Daniel. Daniel admitted signing. No one emerged clean. That mattered. Had the recording made Daniel sound innocent, Paul could have dismissed it as self-serving. Instead, Daniel accused himself first. The truth gained weight because he had not tried to escape it. Martin called Clara. She explained the restricted account, the recovery history, and Daniel's final amendment. Why was Helen Mercer designated confirming party? Martin asked. Clara read Daniel's handwritten instruction. She will not protect me from the truth. Paul lowered his head. I wondered whether he had ever understood his brother, or whether both men had spent their lives seeing only the version of the other that justified their own choices. Emily testified next. Her father's attorney objected repeatedly. She described the incomplete compliance certification, Paul's use of her credentials, the claim purchase spreadsheet, the order to delete correspondence, and the settlement proposal listing protected entities. Did your father explicitly instruct you to destroy evidence? Martin asked. He instructed me to apply the retention schedule to historical correspondence. What did that mean in practice? Delete records older than 7 years. Were those records subject to active litigation holds? Yes. So deletion would have violated policy? Yes. Did you tell him? Yes. What did he say? Emily looked toward Paul. He said policy exists to protect the company, not destroy it. Paul's expression did not change. Martin placed the projection spreadsheet on the screen. Who approved the expected $11.7 million profit? My father. Paul's attorney rose. The projected gain depended on lawful contracts purchased in open transactions. Martin nodded. Were sellers informed that the purchasing companies were controlled by individuals connected to the original pension loss? Emily answered, not consistently. Were some sellers elderly? Yes. Were some facing foreclosure, medical debt, or immediate financial hardship? Yes. Did the purchasing companies use that information in setting prices? Yes. A woman behind us began crying. She had sold her husband's claim for $9,000 after his cancer diagnosis. It was now valued at more than $80,000. Paul had not merely stolen from the past. He had waited for suffering to lower the price. When Martin finished, Paul's attorney requested a recess. The judge denied it. Then Paul took the stand. His attorneys had advised against it. We later learned that he insisted. Perhaps he believed he could still explain the story better than everyone else. For years, that had been his greatest power. His attorney began carefully. Mr. Mercer, did you intend to steal employee retirement funds? No. Why were the funds transferred? To prevent immediate collapse of Silver Pines. What would collapse have caused? Facility closures, resident displacement, layoffs, vendor defaults, and loss of health care coverage for employees. Did Daniel understand those risks? Yes. Did he sign voluntarily? Yes. Did you force his hand? No. What about the affiliated entities? They were structured to stabilize properties and isolate debt. Did you personally benefit? Not at the time. Did you later build Mercer Health using assets connected to Silver Pines? I built a new company after Silver Pines failed. Did it employ hundreds of people? Yes. Did it provide elder care services? Yes. Did you consider yourself responsible for preserving those jobs? Yes. Paul's attorney stepped closer. Did you believe disclosure in 2001 would have harmed more people than temporary silence? Yes. Do you still believe that? Paul hesitated, then said, at the time, yes. It was the first crack. At the time. Not now. Martin rose for cross-examination. Mr. Mercer, when did temporary silence end? Paul looked at him. I don't understand. Was it 90 days? No. 1 year. No. 5 years. No. 24 years? Paul's attorney objected. The judge overruled. Martin continued. You told employees the funds would be restored. When did you inform them that restoration had failed? Legal counsel managed communications. That was not my question. I did not personally inform them. You bought their claims instead. Independent entities made lawful offers. Entities you controlled. Some. Did you disclose that control? Where legally required. Did you disclose that you had signed the original pension transfer? Paul paused. No. Did you disclose that the purchasing entities expected to profit if recovered funds were released? The contracts described assigned recovery rights. To 70-year-old widows? They had the opportunity to seek counsel. With what money? Paul's jaw tightened. Martin placed the settlement proposal before him. Why did you offer Helen Mercer $3 million? To resolve litigation. Why offer to pay Rachel Mercer's student debt? To bring finality to a family dispute. Why promise Emily reinstatement? Paul looked at his daughter. To protect her career. From whom? No answer. Who threatened her career, Mr. Mercer? Paul's attorney objected again. The judge allowed the question. Paul said, her decisions created professional risk. You created that risk when you used her credentials. I had authorization. Written authorization? No. Did you access the restricted account at 9:17 a.m. on the day Daniel suffered his stroke? I reviewed an account. Using Emily's credentials? Yes. Why? To determine whether Daniel had altered authority. He was alive. He was incapacitated. How did you know at 9:17? Paul stared at Martin. Martin repeated the question. How did you know your brother was incapacitated? Paul's face changed. The ambulance had left our house at 8:52. I had called Rachel at 9:06. I had not called Paul until nearly noon. He should not have known. Someone from the hospital contacted me, he said. Who? I don't recall. Phone records show no call from the hospital. Then perhaps someone from the family. No family member contacted you before 11:43. Paul looked toward his attorneys. Martin stepped closer. Were you monitoring Daniel? No. Were you informed when an emergency occurred at his address? No. Then how did you know to access the account? I checked it periodically. Using your daughter's credentials? On occasion. At exactly the time your brother was being transported unconscious? Coincidence. The word sounded weak even before it left him. Martin placed the black SUV photographs on the screen. Did Mercer Health retain private investigator Raymond Cole? Yes. Was he assigned to monitor Daniel? For corporate security. Did he alert you when the ambulance arrived? Paul's attorney stood. Foundation. Martin produced an invoice. The judge admitted it provisionally. The description read, emergency activity at Mercer residence. Subject removed by ambulance. Time, 8:58 a.m. Paul had known because he was watching our house. Not only after Daniel's death. Before. Why were you monitoring him? Martin asked. To protect privileged records. From Daniel. From unauthorized disclosure. Was the broken window part of that protection? No. Did Raymond Cole throw the stone? I don't know. Did you instruct anyone to recover documents from Helen Mercer's home? No. Did you tell anyone the original memorandum had been destroyed? Yes. To whom? Various counsel. And your investigator? Possibly. Martin turned to Judge Collins. We request immediate preservation and production of all investigator communications. The judge granted it. Paul's expression finally broke. Not fear. Fury. He looked at me as though I had betrayed him, as though refusing to remain manageable were a form of violence. The hearing recessed until the investigator's communications could be reviewed. Outside the courtroom, Paul caught up with me near the elevators. His attorneys called his name, but he ignored them. You think you won, he said. This is not a game. It is always a game. You just spent 34 years pretending you weren't playing. The cruelty landed close to truth. That was why he chose it. You watched our house, I said. I watched Daniel. You watched me beside him. You were never the target. That is what men say when women are injured by decisions supposedly made around them. His face tightened. Daniel would still be alive if he had left this alone. I stopped. What does that mean? He refused medical care. He drove himself into the ground. He became obsessed. That is not what you said. Paul glanced toward the attorneys approaching us. I stepped closer. What did you mean? I meant exactly what I said. Did you cause his stroke? No. Did you threaten him? I told him what disclosure would do. To Emily? To everyone. What did you tell him? Paul's gaze shifted toward the elevator doors. That the truth would not bring Susan back. Emily stood several feet away. She had heard. What else? She asked. Paul looked at his daughter. For a second, he was not an executive or a defendant. Only a father who had run out of explanations. Emily, what else did you tell him? I told him Susan's death was his responsibility. Did you believe that? Yes. Do you believe you had no responsibility? Paul did not answer. The elevator arrived. He stepped inside with his lawyers. Before the doors closed, Emily said, "Where is her satchel?" Paul's face went still. Then the doors closed. He knew. Chapter 11. Tell them what I did. Raymond Cole's records were produced under court order the next morning. He had monitored Daniel for 16 months. The reports documented visits to Martin's office, certified mail sent to federal agencies, trips to Cedar Hollow, meetings with former employees, and Daniel's final visit to Emily. Paul knew nearly every step Daniel had taken. The surveillance notes also mentioned the garage fire. Subject burned contents of labeled transfer folders. Photographs transmitted to client. Paul believed the original memorandum was gone because Daniel wanted him to believe it. The folder fire had been a performance. A decoy. Daniel had known someone was watching. Another report concerned the night of my broken window. Raymond Cole's employee Marcus Dunn had driven past the house twice. His phone location placed him on our street at the time the alarm activated. Dunn was questioned. Within hours, he admitted throwing the stone. He claimed he had not intended to enter the house. Paul had told Cole to make sure Helen understood the original was gone. Paul denied authorizing intimidation. Cole produced a voicemail. Paul's voice said, "She needs to stop searching. Remind her why Daniel burned it." It was not a direct order to break a window. It was enough to show intent. The judge referred the matter to prosecutors. But the satchel remained missing. Detective Ortiz obtained a warrant for a storage facility owned by Thomas Keene's former security company. Inside one unit, investigators found archived Silver Pines property, old computers, backup tapes, personnel files, a damaged brown leather satchel. The metal clasp matched photographs of Susan carrying it to work. Inside was no audit memorandum. Only an empty document sleeve and a small notebook. The notebook belonged to Susan. Emily identified her handwriting. Most entries were ordinary. Meeting times, grocery lists, reminders about school events. The final pages were different. Susan had recorded conversations with Paul. Not word for word. Fragments. Paul says Daniel panicking. Vance wants memo gone. P says move records to Mercer resolution file. Asked why my name on courier release. He said temporary. The last entry was dated the night she died. Daniel asked me to deliver copies to federal counsel. Paul told me not to go. Then changed his mind and said I should take the county road instead of the interstate. Why? Below it, written more heavily. Thomas following? Emily stopped reading. Detective Ortiz took the notebook. Your mother believed she was being followed. By Keene? Possibly. Did my father order it? We are still investigating. Why would he tell her to use the county road? That road passed near a Silver Pines property used by corporate security. Was Thomas there? His old work schedule places him on duty. The crash no longer looked random. But it still did not prove murder. Thomas Keene eventually agreed to speak in exchange for limited immunity on obstruction charges. His recorded interview was played privately for Emily before the final hearing. She asked me to sit beside her. Keene admitted following Susan. Paul had ordered him to recover the satchel before she reached Columbus. Did you force her off the road? Detective Ortiz asked. No. Did you make contact with her car? No. Then why did she crash? I pulled close behind her and flashed my lights. Why? To make her stop. Did she know who you were? She probably recognized the company vehicle. What happened? She accelerated. Why? I don't know. Did you follow? Yes. How closely? Too closely. Did you attempt to pass? Yes. Did your vehicle enter her lane? Keene paused. Partly. Did she swerve? Yes. Did you report the crash? No. Why not? I called Mr. Mercer. Paul Mercer. Yes. What did he tell you? To wait. For what? He came to the scene before police finished. The original report did not list Paul. What did he do? He spoke to the tow operator and later told me to collect the satchel. Did he know you had caused Susan to swerve? I told him I had been following her. What did he say? Keene looked toward his lawyer, then answered. He said the accident could not become part of the pension case. Emily shut her eyes. Paul may not have planned to kill Susan. He had sent someone to stop her. Keene's pursuit caused the crash. Then Paul concealed the evidence. Accident and responsibility occupied the same space. Just as they had with Daniel. No one had intended the final harm. Everyone had made choices that brought it closer. The district attorney announced charges against Keene for obstruction, evidence tampering, and conduct related to the fatal crash, subject to limitations and legal review. Paul faced potential obstruction, conspiracy, fraud, and witness intimidation charges. The final account hearing proceeded 2 days later. The courtroom was more crowded than before. Judge Collins began with the competing trustee document. She ruled that Daniel's later amendment removed Paul's authority and that the allegedly irrevocable appointment had been procured without full disclosure of conflicts. Mercer Resolution Partners would not control the account. Next came the purchase claims. Contracts with complete disclosures and independent sellers would receive review. Contracts involving concealed related party control, coercive pricing, or vulnerable claimants would be suspended and potentially rescinded. Paul's companies would not receive immediate payment. Then the judge addressed the uncontested beneficiaries. $39 million could be released in the first distribution. The remainder would stay in trust pending verification and disputed claim review. A sound moved through the gallery. Not cheering. A collective release of breath. Some people had waited longer than their grandchildren had been alive. Judge Collins looked toward me. Mrs. Mercer, the court has received Daniel Mercer's recorded statement. You have requested permission to address the beneficiaries before final confirmation. I stood. My prepared remarks rested on the table. I had rewritten them 7 times. Then I left the pages where they were. My husband told me we were poor, I began. For more than 20 years, I believed his monthly income was about $600. Several reporters lowered their pens and looked up. I thought discovering this account meant he had hidden wealth from me. In a way, he did. But the $55 million was not his wealth. It was money owed to people whose retirement was taken, delayed, reduced, purchased cheaply, or buried beneath legal language. I looked toward the former employees. My husband signed a transfer he should not have signed. The room became still. He knew repayment was uncertain. He allowed fear of facility closures, job losses, his brother, and his own reputation to convince him that silence was temporary and necessary. Paul sat at the opposite table. He did not look at me. Daniel later contacted investigators. He preserved records. He helped recover funds. He refused to accept a government award until beneficiaries were restored. He sent private payments to some families. I paused. Those actions matter. Then I continued. They do not erase what came before. A woman in the gallery began crying. My husband asked me to tell you what he did before telling you what he repaired. So that is what I am doing. I described his signature. His delay. His decision to send Susan in his place. His use of our family's poverty as personal punishment. His refusal to trust me with the truth. My husband called his silence protection. Before he died, he admitted it was also control. Rachel sat behind me. Her eyes filled, but she held my gaze. I loved Daniel. I still love parts of the life we built. But love cannot require me to turn an incomplete man into a perfect one. I looked at Paul. And protecting jobs cannot justify stealing pensions. Protecting a company cannot justify buying claims from desperate people without telling them who profits. Protecting family cannot justify placing daughters, wives, brothers, or employees inside lies they did not choose. Paul finally looked at me. His face held no anger now, only exhaustion. The money should go to its rightful beneficiaries. I have signed away personal control. I ask the court to continue independent review and return every possible dollar to the people and families it was meant to support. I stopped. There was one more thing. The Federal Cooperating Party Award is separate from the pension account. Daniel left it unclaimed. I intend to accept the lawful portion awarded to his estate. A few people shifted. I understood why. I struggled with that decision. I feared taking anything connected to this case would make me another person profiting from loss. Margaret Green sat in the first row. She nodded once. But refusing the award would not return more money to beneficiaries. It would only continue Daniel's decision that Rachel and I should suffer because he felt guilty. I looked at my daughter. That was not justice. It was another form of control. My voice trembled. I did not hide it. I will use part of the award to secure my retirement, repair the damage done to my family, and fund independent records assistance for pension beneficiaries and surviving spouses. I will not apologize for refusing to spend the rest of my life serving a punishment I never agreed to. No one applauded immediately. I was grateful. This was not a performance that needed a victorious ending. Then Samuel Green's widow stood. Margaret leaned on her cane. Daniel owed us the truth, she said. Yes. He also sent $600 every year when he could have kept it. Yes. He was wrong. Yes. And he came back. My throat tightened. Yes. Margaret looked around the courtroom. Some never did. Her eyes moved toward Paul. Then she sat down. Judge Collins approved the distribution plan. She also recognized the estate's separate claim to the federal award, subject to final agency calculation. The hearing ended. $39 million would begin moving to verified beneficiaries within 10 business days. The first part of the $55 million had finally left the account. Not into my hands. Into hundreds of kitchens, mortgage accounts, medical bills, retirement homes, savings accounts belonging to widows who had stopped expecting anything. Outside, reporters shouted questions. Martin guided us toward the side exit. Before we reached it, Paul called my name. His attorneys had left him temporarily alone. I turned. He stood near the courtroom doors. They arrested Thomas, he said. I heard. They'll come for me next. Probably. You're satisfied? No. He studied me. You always needed Daniel to be the good brother. I needed him to be the man he told me he was. He wasn't. Neither are you. Paul gave a tired laugh. No, I suppose not. For the first time, he did not defend himself. Did you mean to kill Susan? I asked. No. Did you order Keene to stop her? Yes. Did you know his pursuit caused the crash? Not until afterward. Did you hide the satchel? Yes. Emily stood a few feet behind me. Paul saw her. His face changed. I thought if the records disappeared, her death would remain an accident, he said. It was an accident, Emily replied. And you caused it. I did not touch her car. You sent the person who did. I was trying to stop the documents. You were always trying to stop the documents. Paul looked at his daughter. I built everything for you. Emily shook her head. No. You built it so I would have to protect it. The words seemed to take the strength from him. Two investigators entered the hallway. They approached Paul. One displayed a warrant. Paul did not resist. Before they led him away, he looked at me. Daniel won in the end. No, I said. The people you both failed finally stopped losing. They took him through another door. Emily watched until he disappeared. Then she sat on a bench and cried for her father. Not because he was innocent. Because he was still her father. That grief did not need correction. Chapter 12. What remained? The first payments arrived 9 days later. Clara invited me to observe the release from the bank's compliance office. I sat beside her as batches processed. Not individual names. Only claim numbers and amounts. Still, I imagined the people attached to them. Samuel Green's surviving spouse. The maintenance worker whose pension disappeared after 31 years. The nurse who sold her claim to pay for her husband's surgery. The dietary aide who had kept every Silver Pines pay stub in a shoebox. At 10:42 a.m., the first distribution completed. Clara's phone rang. Her father. She answered on speaker. Did it happen? He asked. Yes, Dad. How much? She told him. The old man became silent. Then he said, Your mother should have seen this. Clara looked out the window. I know. He asked whether Daniel's wife was there. Clara handed me the phone. Mr. Gwyn, my daughter says you told the truth about your husband. I tried. That must have been hard. It was. Harder than lying? I thought about it. No. Just painful in a different direction. He laughed softly. That sounds right. Before ending the call, he said, Tell your daughter not to waste the years being angry. Rachel stood beside me. She had heard. After the distribution, we went to lunch. For the first time since Daniel died, we discussed something unrelated to the case. Rachel wanted to reduce her hours at the hospital. She had worked nights for so many years that daytime felt unfamiliar. What would you do? I asked. Teach clinical nursing, maybe. You'd be good at that. I'd earn less. The old answer rose automatically. We have to be careful. Money doesn't last. Then I stopped. Carefulness was not wrong. Fear disguised as wisdom was. You have options, I said. We can review them when the estate award is finalized. Rachel studied me. You mean help me? Yes. Dad always said paying my loans would make me irresponsible. Your father confused suffering with character. Rachel looked down at her menu. He paid those families. Yes. And still refused to help me. Yes. Why? Because helping them reduced his guilt. Helping us would have forced him to admit the story he told at home was false. Her eyes filled. That's awful. Yes. Do you hate him? Sometimes. The answer surprised her. I continued. Sometimes I miss him so much that I reach for his coffee cup. Sometimes I remember the coat I returned and want to break every plate in the kitchen. Sometimes I hear his recording and feel proud that he finally told the truth. All at once. Often. She nodded. Me too. The federal award was finalized 2 months later. With interest and adjustments, Daniel's estate received a little over $6 million before taxes and legal costs. It was not $55 million. It was more than enough. I paid the remaining mortgage. I replaced the roof Daniel had patched 3 times. Then I sold the house. Rachel was shocked. You just fixed it. I fixed it because I wanted to sell it honestly. Where will you go? A smaller place. Are you sure? For decades, everyone asked whether I was sure only when I made a decision they had not expected. Yes. I bought a 2-bedroom home near a park with a wide front porch and no hidden compartments in the desk. Rachel used part of the award to pay off her student loans and enroll in a nursing education program. I did not give her everything. Love was not the absence of limits. It was the presence of honest ones. Emily entered a cooperation agreement with prosecutors. She was not charged. The state bar reviewed her conduct and concluded she had acted to preserve records after refusing unlawful instructions. She left corporate compliance. Months later, she accepted a position with a nonprofit that advised employees about retirement rights. Paul was indicted on charges related to pension fraud, obstruction, witness intimidation, evidence tampering, and false statements. Some charges concerned events decades old and faced legal complications. Others were recent. The surveillance, the account access, the attempted deletion, the settlement concealment, the broken window instruction. He eventually entered a plea agreement. He did not spend the rest of his life in prison. Reality rarely delivers punishment as cleanly as stories do. He lost his company. His sale collapsed. Most of his remaining assets entered restitution and litigation. He served time. Emily visited him once a month. Rachel asked how she could. Emily said, "Refusing to lie for him does not require me to stop loving him." I understood. The investigation into Susan's death ended with a formal amended finding. Her death remained classified as resulting from a vehicle crash. But the report stated that Thomas Keene's pursuit and attempted interception materially contributed to the loss of control. Paul's concealment had obstructed the original investigation. Emily placed the amended report beside her mother's photograph. It was not justice, but it restored the missing part of the story. The pension project became larger than I expected. I used part of Daniel's award to create the Mercer Green Records Initiative. Margaret insisted her husband's name come second. Mercer caused the trouble, she said. Green kept the receipts. The initiative helped retirees and surviving spouses organize employment records, understand pension statements, identify suspicious claim purchase offers, obtain free document copies, and connect with independent counsel. I worked 3 mornings a week, not because I needed employment, because I had spent years filing documents without asking what they protected. Now I wanted records to serve the people whose names appeared inside them. On the first anniversary of Daniel's death, Rachel came to my new house carrying a small box. What is it? Something from the old closet. Inside was the final anniversary card. The one Daniel never gave me. I recognized his handwriting. The front showed a quiet lake at sunset. Inside, he had written, Helen, I spent years believing that if I could repair enough damage before telling you, the truth would hurt less. Instead, every year of silence became another injury. I loved you. That is true. I controlled what you knew. That is also true. One truth does not erase the other. You deserved the truth while I was alive. Daniel. I read it twice. Then I placed it on the table. Rachel watched me. Are you going to keep it? Yes. Why? Because keeping something is not the same as obeying it. We carried the card outside. Evening light crossed the porch. Children played in the park across the street. A dog barked behind a fence. Ordinary sounds. For most of my marriage, I had believed a peaceful life was one without open conflict. I knew better now. Peace was not silence. Peace was being able to live inside the truth without disappearing from it. The $55 million had once appeared on a computer screen as an impossible promise. For one brief moment, I thought it might repay every sacrifice. It could not. Money could repair a roof, pay a loan, restore a pension. It could not return Susan to her daughter. It could not give Rachel the school she had wanted at 18. It could not restore the years I spent believing questions were a form of disloyalty. But the money had done one thing none of us expected. It forced every hidden choice into daylight. Daniel's fear, Paul's greed, Susan's courage, Emily's refusal, Rachel's anger, my silence. In the end, Daniel had not left me $55 million. He left me the responsibility of deciding what truth would cost after he was no longer there to pay it. For the first time in my life, I did not ask what he would have wanted. I made the decision myself. And when darkness settled over the porch, I went inside my own home, closed my own door, and felt no need to wait for anyone's permission to begin again. The end.